change the general plan. Yeah. You'll have to get Jimmy to fix that. You talk to his neighbor. Why did he vote differently? Oh, he did. I love it. People hate it when they do. Yeah. But they did that in the yeah, Dennis. Yeah. That's not right. You still. We'll be next meeting. I'll tell everyone later. Should we do it? I know. It was fun. I will. Anything pre? Welcome to our city council meeting. A few minutes late today, but appreciate everybody being here. We'll get started. We have a full agenda today. Lots of things to go through and talk about and make decisions on. If we could, we'd like to start with an invocation. Will be offered by Tim Martin of the St. George Area Interfaith Council.
That's correct. And I haven't been here to offer the prayer since you all gave such great support to our National Day of Prayer breakfast, where we had 400 people and 17 religions, counting the 25 stake presidents. The point being, there are wonderful people in this community who are not of your faith. Whatever your faith is, there are wonderful people, and we thank you and your great work in making our community better. Please join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful this day that we can gather as citizens and leaders of the city council. We ask thy blessing to be upon those who might participate this day. We ask for thy inspiration and knowledge in the decisions that will be brought before the council, that good, wise choices will be made, that all who wish to speak will have their opportunity and feel that their opinions are heard. We're thankful for the sacrifices that have been made and continue to be made in our community to enrich the lives that we live. We're thankful for the water that we've received this year. We're thankful for the green that we see. We're thankful for those who come and visit and love this community and those who have been here forever throughout their lives. We ask thy blessing now to be upon all those who might participate in this meeting. And these blessings we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now we would like to have a few of our community scouts come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The senior patrol leader of this troop, Peyton Calico, will be the voice and lead us in the pledge, and then I'm going to have the three of them introduce themselves. So Peyton, tell us what we need to do.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.
Thank you, Peyton. So introduce yourself again and then tell us what you're working on. I think you're working on the same merit badge and maybe what rank you are. It looks like you're a life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Peyton Calico. We're working on the Citizenship in the Community merit badge, and I'm a Life Scout.
Awesome.
So I'm Akeem Nagley, and I'm just going to say I'm a first class scout because I have like one thing left until I'm at first class.
Way to go.
Yeah.
You're first class to us.
My name is Porter Calico, and I am a tenderfoot.
Tenderfoot, 11-year-old scout. Awesome. Way to get started. Thank you, young man. Appreciate you being here today and wish you best as you work through your merit badges and your rank advancements. Okay. I don't believe we've got anything else in terms of kind of pre-agenda, Gary, do we? I'm not aware of anything. Might just thank everybody that's been involved. There's been a lot of activity in the last few weeks, lots of different things. Council, appreciate everybody going to all the various things. The other day, there was a Flag Day event Michelle was at and I was at, and someone passed out because I talked too long and all that stuff. So it could. So yeah, it was a scout. So scouts, be careful. Don't lock your knees or listen to long-winded politicians. It'll knock you over. But anyway, it was a good celebration, even if it was in Washington City, right, Michelle? Next year it's our turn, so we'll work on that. See if we can host it here in one of our parks or town square or something. Did we decide town square might be good? Something on the west side. Anyway, we'll work through that. So if there's nothing else, council, we'll get started. Ed, did you have something?
Yes, Mayor. Do you remember the size of that flag that went up at
I was
on that
told
150-foot pole?
I was told it was 40 by 80.
40 by 80, and is it beautiful? The wind really had it out the other day. And it
Yeah,
just
appreciate
looked
everybody that could be there,
Yeah.
being there the other day, and that was good. Just about a week ago, I guess, a week ago today. So I think we had everybody there. Huh? True. That was pretty cool. But yeah, it does look good when the wind catches it, especially, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I was moved by his grandfather who served during World War II.
Yeah,
Two
I think he
branches
was
of service.
91, 92 years
Yeah,
old. And
right in there.
yeah, so pretty
Awesome.
neat. The Heritage Choir did a really nice Flag Day concert. It was a couple days early, but a great concert on, I think it was Friday night. Was it, Tim? Friday night. It was just fantastic and a great tribute. We had many veterans there. It's amazing the number of veterans we have in this county, isn't it? Michelle probably knows. Seems like there are somewhere around 10,000 or something when you, yeah, so incredible, but fantastic concert.
Just go to Sun River's wonderful programs that they have,
Yeah.
since practically the whole community are veterans,
Yeah.
and that's something to behold, actually.
It's great, and they had their event on Memorial Day as well as the one in St. George Cemetery, and we had Congressman Stewart was here and spoke at that one, as I understand it. I wasn't here, but and then Sun River does another one on Veterans Day. So yeah, it's great. We certainly want to make sure we recognize and thank our veterans for their service, those that have passed and those that are still here. So, okay, well, let's proceed. It looks like we don't have anything on the consent calendar tonight, so we could go straight to bid openings, Gary, unless there's any changes to the agenda, Gary, besides the
Mayor,
addendum.
there's not.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to bid openings. Brett's out of town, so I'll try to handle them. The first bid opening is professional services contract with Alliance Consulting for design of the White Dome tank site. This site is between River Road and the airport. It's in that area. It's being developed, the Sitla property that is currently being proposed for development. Long term, we need a tank site in that particular area. We already have the site, so this contract will be to design the roadside, where they'll go and the access roads, etc. And it is in the budget.
Any questions for Gary on this, council? If not, when you're ready, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to,
Did
you
he
start
say
with-
the amount?
yes,
It's 20,000
Oh, okay.
something.
All right, I just
570.
didn't see it on here. Thanks. Sorry.
Mayor, I'd love to move that we approve a professional service agreement with Alliance Consulting for the design of the White Dome tank site and access road grading at the cost of $20,570.
Second.
Motion by Betty and a second by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is the Lizzy Lane sewer project. This is the extension of the sewer line in the Lizzy Lane area there from west of River Road. The original low bid was $4,798,000, and the low bidder was Terry Brothers Excavating, which was not a local bidder, and Interstate Rock Products exercised their right under the purchasing ordinance to match their bid. However, on reviewing the bids, we decided that we could reduce some of the bid items, which is allowed under the bid, to reduce costs, that we can maybe do some of those projects ourselves where it goes across the golf course of the St. George Golf Club. So the actual bid amount tonight, when we reduce those, the Interstate Rock became the low bid anyway. So the bid amount is $4,557,371.80. This is over budget and quite a bit. However, we have no choice but to complete this project right now. And so we're going to have to reallocate funds from and reduce other projects to find the dollars to perform this project. So it's our recommendation that we go ahead and award that bid to Interstate Rock.
Questions on that, council? Appreciate the staff going through the efforts to get the best price we could, and when possible, a local contractor.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid for the Lizzy Lane Sewer Project to Interstate Rock for $4,557,371.80.
Second. Motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is the award of contract for Bluff Street power relocation. As you're aware, Mayor and Council, that beginning in January of 2018, UDOT's planning on widening Bluff Street between St. George Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard. In order to do that, we have some major power lines that need to be relocated, and we want to do that prior to the construction of the project so we can keep people in power while we put a new line in. And we're going to do that by going forward with it right now. This project is actually a UDOT project. They're paying the cost of this, but it's being run through our program, and we will then bill them, and we'll manage the contract for them. There were two bids. One bid, the higher bid, was deemed non-responsive or non-conforming, so it's recommended we award the bid to the one bidder that met the requirements, which was Tri-State Electric and Utility, $587,329.35.
Questions on this one, council?
So how far down Bluff Street will the power be relocated, for the whole way, or just the part where this
I think
current
it's
part of
just
the project?
down to St. George Boulevard.
For that part of the project? Completely reimbursable, just
Yes.
during the 50% and then 50% when done. I'll go ahead then, if there's no other questions, and make a motion to approve the bid to Tri-State Electric for $587,329.35.
Second.
We have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, I think we could then go to staff reports, Mayor.
We've got a couple of them.
Got a few items tonight. So I'm going to turn some time to Renee Fleming, our conservation specialist in the water and the power, and present the culinary water restrictions, as well as maybe make a plea.
Thank you. And I actually have a third item. We've completed the, I touched something I shouldn't have.
Everybody does.
Okay. We completed the most recent water sense toilet rebate program that was funded in part with the Bureau of Reclamation funding, matching funds from the Washington County Water Conservancy District and the Water Services Department. And part of the grant obligation is to report the findings, and I'll get this posted on the website as well. But overall, we replaced 1,010 toilets. We took a sample of the first people to participate in the project because we could compare their indoor water use the year prior and the year after they put the toilets in, and they saved 326,000 gallons. So if I assume that's a fairly good estimate and extrapolate it, we should save just over 1 million gallons a year with this toilet replacement project. So not only have we saved water, but we're also saving the treatment costs associated with the water that's not getting flushed down the toilet. So I think that's been a good project. I do have about $2,500 left in funding to continue the toilet rebate program because the city had won the state's H2 water oath to save water. So I will continue accepting applications. But unfortunately, once that funding is gone, it will be gone because there's been a new regulation that grant fundings to support toilet rebate programs are specifically not going to be allowed anymore. But we've done a lot with replacing toilets. So I also wanted to talk with you about water restrictions. It's the dog days of summer, and they've arrived, and we're hitting temperatures in 100 degrees or better. And I would request that we implement mandatory watering restrictions so that people who water with our drinking water between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. to avoid daytime watering where you lose so much more to evaporation. And I know I say this every year, but I think it can't be stressed enough that we have many large irrigators who irrigate with irrigation quality water. It's not treated, it's raw water. But the irrigation system does not have the production or the storage capacity that the culinary water system does. And those are large irrigators like the golf courses, like the city parks, the cemeteries, Dixie State University, many of the water or school district facilities. It is a better use of our resources to have them irrigate as that water is available rather than try to put them on the culinary system and have to expand our drinking water system to accommodate 12-hour drinking or irrigation schedules. And that irrigation quality water also includes reuse water, which is the treated effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. So that is why it's not that we see water as less valuable or less important if it's irrigation quality. It's just an indication of the limitation of the system. So that's what I'm asking and here before.
Well, I think a lot of people, they're getting used to this. Council, I think we're all, hopefully already watering this way. What I'm hearing is next week is going to be hot, unseasonably hot. So it's hopefully we're watering deeply and not too frequently. Yeah, and adjusting our timers if we have them appropriately so that they already are meeting, what Renee's asking us. But again, this is just something we're asking. Is I guess it's not really a resolution, but we're just approving the policy.
Implementation.
And we come back and
take it off in
take
September,
it off in
October, depending on how the weather cools.
Yep. So, Council, I'd entertain a motion unless you have other.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you in your presentation say mandatory?
I did say mandatory.
Okay. So, and then how do we monitor that?
I usually get reports from the neighbors about their other neighbors. Sometimes it's water crews who are out and notice it, and they take a door hanger with them, and we'll put a door hanger on the door to remind them. So,
so far, that's all we've really done is reminded. We've not really fined anybody or done anything.
And there are some common sense exclusions. For example, newly planted lawns that would die.
We do, although we really encourage people to avoid planting sod at this time of year because it's going to have a more difficult time getting established. But if that's what they've done, then you're right. We do exempt them so that they can get that opportunity to get their sod or their grass seed established.
With all the new construction of homes and so forth taking place,
Right.
that happens.
It does.
Anyone ready to make a motion on this? I'd call it a temporary, a seasonal policy.
I will make a motion to approve the implementation of daytime watering restrictions for those irrigating with culinary water from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Second.
Can we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
And I would remind everyone that we have the free water check programs that the Conservancy District runs. So if you don't know how long to run your irrigation system for, call, schedule an appointment. It's free. We will come out, send a college-trained intern to tell you how long you should run your system, how frequently, and how much water you need to put on. So, and there are also rebates for smart irrigation controllers to make it even easier. So they'll water based on our temperatures and the soil moisture in your or the moisture level in your soil, so you don't even have to think about it. And if I can have one more item, thank you. This is related to hot temperatures also. We understand there's a hot weather advisory that the National Weather Service has issued for areas of Los Angeles, Nevada, and creeping into our area too. It's going to be hot, especially for the next few days. So I would really encourage people to be efficient with their cooling dollars. So run your air conditioner at 78 degrees and turn on a fan. You get that wind chill effect, and it makes you feel cooler. For some people, they can run it, 2 to 4 degrees warmer than what they normally would, as long as they have their fan running. And then when you leave the room, turn the fan off, because the fan keeps us people cool. It does not keep the room cool. And to do common sense things, if you're going to cook, grill outside. It's a good time to get in the shade and to grill. Avoid using your oven, which heats up your house and makes your air conditioner work even more harder. And to close the drapes on south and west facing windows, especially to reduce the amount of heat transfer that comes into the house. And it will help you manage your cooling bill better. And this can be an expensive time for electricity. And I'd also mention that we have an energy efficiency workshop that is specifically to how to be more efficient with your air conditioning, scheduled for July 19th at noon in the City Council chambers. And Kirk Croft, who is with Dixie Applied Technology, will be presenting. It's free, it's open to the public, and you might learn some tips that can just help you manage your budget a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate all of your efforts.
It's good stuff. She's good at what she does, and the crazy part is I think she enjoys it. So she really is, and she's fun to listen to on that kind of stuff. So good stuff, Renee. Thank you. That might be something too, Mary, you can mention in your radio addresses.
Yeah. I'll be on the radio actually next week, so I'll do that.
Especially when that one person called. No.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Very good stuff. Thank you, Renee.
And Mayor, this is not government intrusion into people's lives, telling them how to conduct themselves. I look at this as a positive, friendly aspect of government trying to put out suggestions and to help along the way of self-reliance, which is a big issue.
For sure. We do live in the desert. We need to take care of our water, and still we like to see the grain that we can. But I think everyone's getting much more, as they say, water-wise. I think we all appreciate that. Helps us. I don't think we can get to where we're going to grow to purely through conservation by any means, but we're going to need conservation as a big piece of that. So, okay, Gary.
All right, the second item under staff reports is the local consent for a full-service restaurant liquor license. This is for the new Hyatt place that's being finished next to the Dixie Convention Center. The applicant meets the requirements. We've done the checks, as well as meets the current requirements of the ordinance. It's for a restaurant liquor license, which we've usually granted for these types of operations.
Any questions on this one? Looks like they're getting pretty close down there, so. Yeah. Looks really nice. Ready for a motion then, if you're so inclined, Council.
I would move that we approve a request for local consent for a Class C license, a full-service restaurant at the proposed location of 1890 South and 120 East St. George.
Second.
Motion by Betty with a second by Michelle. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
If I could just have Lori come up. She's got a very short item for you. Just if we can get her taken care of.
Sure.
And James Van Fleet.
Lori came and met with me today and assured me that they're ready.
The lights are going to stay on.
The lights are going to stay on. The AC is going to stay on. You have some problems, you're just going to. These are peak times. We're talking about temperatures reaching next week possibly 116 degrees, folks.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's going to be hot for a few
It's gonna be
days.
hot, but we're going to take care of everybody. Just be wise of what's going on around you, and people that are out milling around the street and stuff. I mean, you know, it's going to be like that for our workers too. So, but what I want to update you on
Before
is,
you say that, I just have to say, I think it's awesome that Lori and her staff, they were already on this. You know, I mean, she came in to report to me and just said, it's going to be okay. And I'm going, what's going to be okay? Well, it's going to be hot. And so we've got all this, and this in place. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That's great.
I want to update you on the solar power purchase agreement that we talked to you all about at a work meeting in November. Sean and James Van Fleet spent many hours working with a group to develop a 2-megawatt solar project south of here, down by the Bloomington power plant, if you know where that is, generator station in SunSmart.
Yeah.
And it looks like we've got it all wrapped up. Today, we're going to approve a lease for that. You know, it's very important for us, for our portfolio, to include solar. Solar has become very economical for us to buy on a power purchase agreement. In other words, not putting the solar up basically ourselves, but from buying it from a producer. So this is a utility scale producer that's going to be coming to town here, and he's a local person that's developing this. And James is going to give you all the details to that, but I just want you to know that it's important for us to get solar down here. It meets our forecast, it meets our area, it's local, it's the sun, and we have a lot of it, and we're taking advantage of it. We're looking at bigger contracts out in the future from up north around the Cedar City area and up in Beaver, and those I'll be coming to you later on and talking to you about. They will be a replacement for a lot of the coal contracts that we have that are coming to an end in the next few years. And with that, I want to give this to James and have him tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Lori.
Mayor, Council. So as we talked in, I believe it was October of last year, we mentioned that the project had the potential to be to 4 megawatts. Initially, we're going to do 2 megawatts with the vendor. There is the ability to expand it in the future up to 4 megawatts. A quick rule of thumb, for every 1 megawatt, you can power up to 1,000 homes. So kind of give you a ballpark of what we're talking about here. The value to us is that it reduces our exposure to the market. Currently, the market's about $50 or higher, depending on the time of day and the weather. So this helps to reduce that exposure to the market. The location hasn't changed. It's adjacent to the SunSmart solar facility down in Bloomington, right next to the Bloomington substation and just north of the wastewater facility. So that's what we are proposing, the location to put it in, and that's why tonight we're bringing you the land lease agreement. Any questions?
As I recall, this enables us to have solar power for that, starting with 2 megawatts at a rate that is at or below what we pay for coal. It's below. For 20 years. And we're doing this on property that we own free and clear. It's doing nothing else. I'm glad we own it, Gary. Good job. It's really nice to have that be, kind of out of the way a little bit.
It's a buffer zone for the
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant when we put that down there. And so it's
Yeah.
actually still being a buffer zone, so there's no houses next to it, but it's being put into more
Solar.
productive use. So
I think it's fantastic. Any comments, council? Otherwise, ready for a motion to approve this agreement.
Just to clarify, go back, Mayor, this is for a fee waiver. We have
no,
this isn't C?
B.
B.
Yeah.
We're still on B. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, it's actually C. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, D.
D.
I bumped up so I could send Lori and James home, not have to pay them overtime.
Always thinking, huh?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the land lease and power purchase agreement at the existing Bloomington substation site.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mayor, I think there's also one other benefit that they failed to tell you about, and that is that the transmission costs of having power generated here in our own facility, similar to our gas plant, and this, we don't have to pay somebody to transmit the power down to us.
It's already here.
And it doesn't have the opportunity to get interrupted like it could for things that happen outside.
When some
of our-
backhoe operator
Yeah.
in Richfield hits something.
Right.
Yeah.
So the more power we can get generated internally and locally under our own wing, so to speak, is better, in my opinion, and that's why we're out seeking some of these projects.
Fantastic.
It's past 4:30. You want to go back, or 5:30? You want to go back to public hearings, or you want to try to finish some of the items on the agenda?
If there are a couple of others we could maybe do quickly and let people go, that'd be great.
I've never known Bobby to be very quick about anything, so I'm not sure about that, but that's the next item if you want to go there. Or you want me to?
Yes.
Is there any? Yeah, let's go ahead and go there.
Let me just say on E, it's an approval of an airline use and agreement with SkyWest. That's just our standard agreement. They're asking to rent more space in the terminal building, same rates, same contract, just expansion of space. We'd love to see them expand space, and we can rent to them, and so that should be not a problem there.
So let's go ahead and do that. Council, do you have any questions on that standard lease agreement?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle and a second by Betty to approve the airline use and lease agreement with SkyWest Airlines. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Might just mention that Washington County last week approved the same agreement that we did, the cost-sharing agreement between SkyWest and the county and the city for a potential future flight, and they did say that, as you know, that is hopefully going to be at LAX through United. They're not ready to announce it yet, but we're being very public and at least saying that is potentially something that they're looking at very soon. So we'll see.
Yay.
So should we go back to, do you want to do C?
That's fine.
Let's go ahead and do 6C. That's fee waiver and maybe more signage for this event. So who's presenting this? Gary, are you going to introduce, or Karen or Bobby?
Well, I think we can just say that this is a special event permit. It's a new special event permit, and they're asking for things that are beyond what the committee can and the policy is to grant as a staff, and so we felt like it should come to you for your consideration. We're a little concerned about the budget for some of the issues and about placing some of the signs on our historic buildings, but I guess that'll be part of the discussion.
Okay. Come on down.
Doesn't she look adorable?
I didn't. I was looking for him.
I know. All right, well, I'm Bobby Wonkier. I'm here today from Arts Design, and I want to talk about the way we worked, which is a Smithsonian traveling exhibit that's coming to Washington County. It's actually, the actual exhibit will be at the Silver Reef Museum, but because I work there and I also run Arts Design, I saw it as a perfect way for us to actually bring things downtown, and there has been a great deal of marketing that has been done through tourism to do that. In fact, they have put these maps out promoting the Smithsonian. They're all over the state, and it talks about Arts Design being downtown, and the reason that I'm actually here is for the programming. All of it is downtown, most of it, I would say. And if you open your packets, you'll see I have a Washington County Works booklet. And I want to thank you right now for the Electric Theater, because it is the awesomest place for us to have programming for the way we worked. We were looking at having the programming in historic buildings, and so we decided to use the Electric Theater, the Dixie Academy downtown, and also the Courthouse if it's available by then. I'm pretty excited about the fact that the Courthouse is being reutilized, and Ken Sizemore is actually on our board as well. So I guess I'm getting a little overwhelmed. Just hang on one second. So back in August, Betty met with myself and Gary Sanders and many of our stakeholders in town to discuss what we would do with this programming. And Betty, one of the things she said was that she'd like to connect all of the museums and have all of our history connected. And so I've been working on that, and that's the whole point of bringing the way we work downtown. I am asking, maybe I should back up a second too. All of this programming is going to be on a brand new website. Our board has a new president-elect, Ron Brown, and he's with Propel Marketing. He is redesigning the site. You can tell them what you're doing, and then I'll tell them why we need signs.
Yeah, so basically what we're doing, the whole focus of Arts Design really is
Will you come over to the mic while you're speaking and just state your name for the record?
My name is Ron Brown, and again, I'm on the board for Arts Design. Basically, the purpose of Arts Design is to help market the museums and the artists in our community. And so one of the things that our board has talked about at length over the last few months is ways to let people outside of the community know about our rich history and culture and arts that we have here. And so one of the things that we've decided to do is to develop what's called an aggregate site. The site will list a lot of the museums and galleries and artists that are in our community. And we're leaning heavily on a Google grant that's given to 501c3 organizations to be able to advertise this site through the country, throughout the world, for cultural tourism. So the idea really is to reach outside of our community, let people know about the things that are available in downtown St. George for tourists to come in and enjoy cultural tourism.
And we're using this as our kickoff program, and the reason that we need the fee waivers and the signage is to drive people to this site, which will have a whole section for events that are going on downtown. We have a third weekend event that will be ongoing that we want to also promote on that site. And the Electric Theater is the perfect place to do the lectures, and this would be something that would be ongoing past the Smithsonian. It's just kind of the way that we can get everything together and connected. So if you look at the inside insert, it'll show you all of the museums that we have connected through this program, as well as having the lectures at the the Electric Theater and the Dixie Academy. So we're hoping to bring people from Las Vegas. Tourism has paid to put our flyers in the certified racks in all of Las Vegas and southern Utah. Everything will be directed to this phenomenal site that Ron is building. And the signage would be directing everything to that site as well. And we will be closely linked to the city and also to the tourism site. In fact, our calendar will be the county calendar. It's going to be seamless. So we'll be having all the programming on that calendar with this little sign, Washington County Works, and it'll direct people to the Electric Theater and to the Dixie Academy and wherever. And the great thing about that is, and we have done this with Arts Design, we can have them register, and we'll know where they're coming from and where they're staying, as well as that they're coming to those particular events. So the reason that we need the fee waivers is so that we can offer these free and invite people into our town to park in our parking lot across the street from the Electric Theater and have lunch after the event, and then possibly go out to see the other museums that are on the list. So it's a day trip and maybe 2-day trip. So that's, I hope, answering questions. I feel a little disheveled because I know
talk
you're
about the parking garage
tight.
location.
Yeah, I mentioned the parking garage. The reason we're asking for a designated parking spot is because we talked to St. George Shuttle about people parking in town and then going out to see the traveling exhibit, and also there's a couple of other DUP-type museums that are participating with us, and we want people to come to St. George because that's where everything is. We want them to have lunch and have a great experience. So it only makes sense for everything to be based here. Plus, I have my gallery right in the middle of town too. So we started that back in last Pioneer Day with the DUP, and I've had exhibits in the showcase regarding the way we worked in Washington County for the full year. And right now I have Lynn Clark in there with our agriculture and water. So I have it all in the packet for you where I'm at up till now. I welcome any questions. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I want to give a lot too. So
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This being kind of a budget and a fiduciary day of responsibilities for us to look at
Mm-hmm.
city finances in a lot of ways, is there a fee going to be charged at the Electric
no,
Theater?
the reason that we're asking for the fee waiver is to offer this free of charge.
It's free of charge, okay,
And-
and that's,
And that is hopefully going to be enough to have people come and hear these fantastic historians that I have lined up. I don't know if you've looked through my list, but
If you look through, the speakers are talking about the rich cultural history and the people of our
that's
county.
it's the way we worked.
great.
And a lot of us will be dressing the way we work too. This is
The other,
Not like this.
1970s shop.
the other thing that
Shop.
caught my eye is the mention of the St. George Children's Museum.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on
Yes,
what that for me?
we have a couple of lectures up in the Dixie Academy. We're going to have a dinosaur lecture about paleontology's work in Washington County. We're also having the mayor, I hope Doug Alder told you about that. We're going to have the mayor there talking about settlement.
I'll
in
talk to
Washington
Doug,
County. He said he volunteered you.
He does that
He
sometimes.
is working quite a bit with me too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wish I could go on and on for hours. And
Well,
that's-
just one more thing. Did you touch base with the Dinosaur Museum?
Yes, they are
participating in this?
actually one of our exhibits. That's something I should tell you, is the museums that are listed in here have been working with Utah Humanities for the past 7 months on creating exhibits that collaborate with the way we worked. So even though the national exhibit is, it's some kiosks and it's got a cool name and it's important for sure, but the real story is the way we worked here over the last 150 years. So I have gone really at great length to draw all of that together.
Thank you. Mayor, this is hits in the line of when we think about the events fees that was put forth by the city as to how we're going to charge for events and so forth. This is one of those events that is so important that the proceeds of this would warrant the waiver of fees for the overall good that this does for the community and for these organizations. I would feel is proper for exemption.
Well, that's what the council will need to decide. We typically haven't been waiving the fees, and that's why we set them up the way we did, and we tried to set them as low as we could, as you recall the discussion we had, but I'd like to hear your comments before we get to that point. So, Betty?
Well, the first comment is when we had the secret shopper that gave suggestions for our city. One was that the DUP, or DUP, didn't mean anything to our visitors, and I just want to report that Janine at the the museum took that very seriously. Their board has changed the working name to Pioneer Museum, and I might even get them to be Pioneer Women. Would be really cool. But
One of their lectures they're going to do for the way we worked is Pioneer Women, and they're going to do textile at length where they're talking about dyeing
making our clothes.
Yes.
Well, I think that's great. So I just want to, report to Gary and the board, or the council, that those suggestions were taken seriously and people are really doing things. And thank you for this great program. It's so exciting we want to bring people downtown and to see the connection, and especially with our heritage. I love it. And if there are no other comments, I would make the motion. But
Just to say
It's
that
up to you.
I like your hat, Bob.
Thank you.
So Bobby, so you're asking to use the electric theater like a total of
It's like
eight times at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, on Saturdays, so that people would be able to come in, do the lecture, have lunch, and then go to the different museums. Another thing that we're also working on with our website is John Kessler from the Arts Commission, he's been working with his lodging and tourism group to build this website called Banwango, and they're going to offer what is it? It's a passport.
It's like a passport to travel around to different museums and organizations within the
So
community.
we're getting a lot of infrastructure for future events through this particular event.
And each time, about how long do you figure those programs? A couple hours?
About an hour, hour and a half maybe.
So conceivably after noon, the electric
We're
theater
done
could be
at-
available again.
Shane, how much is it to rent the electric theater? What do we charge? $75 an hour?
$75 an hour.
Or a day? Per event? Okay.
Mayor, I think that from a staff standpoint, we understand what Bobby's doing, and it's a great effort. It's a great effort to get people downtown. You know, there's a couple of things we can't do. Number one, we don't put signs up on the boulevard. I think they're asking for our help there. We have whoever's putting signs up contract with private people to do that. It looks like that they are suggesting any signs on the buildings would be existing hardware, so we could probably live with that, I guess, from that standpoint. Our biggest concern is every day we get requests for fee waivers, and so all we'd be asking is what the nexus. So make sure we have a nexus of why that we're doing this, maybe using our buildings or bringing, people downtown or what it may be, so that the first event we have in the town square that asks for a fee waiver, that we can explain why we're getting a fee waiver here and we didn't give them one. That's our concern. So it's not the event.
Do we have an
Event's
idea?
A great project, great effort they've done. I think it's an incredible event. I'm just concerned because that's why we went through this whole process
Right.
and tried to be able to help make those decisions.
But when we talk about those events being requested for fee waivers, do we have a lot of those that are offering free events like this, a public event?
Yeah, all your fundraisers that use the facility, that we still charge town square to, like for instance, to have an event there, and the funds may go out. The only way, I don't know if that's possible, but if we're listed as a sponsor, in the past as a sponsor, I don't think we charged Doc Utah to use the electric theater. If there's some way you can make that nexus to say that
We're a presenting sponsor, kind of.
Right.
Absolutely, we're more than happy to do that.
I think that way then maybe we can tie that for what we can help, but we don't have the staff or the ability to help. We got out of that business. We didn't want to be competing with the private sector to put all the banners up on the boulevards and on buildings. That's something that our expertise isn't there. So
There's, let's see, and you'd be renting more than just the electric theater, right? You're using the Dixie Academy, third floor,
And
possibly,
the courthouse. And
which I don't know if we have a fee schedule
yeah, I
set for
talked
that
to
yet.
Sizemore today about that, and he said he didn't know, so I'm asking.
It's new, because I don't think we have an agreement with them yet, do we? We're close.
we are close. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to start operating here soon. So I think we have
We'll
a
have
tentative I think we did talk about it at the last meeting. I think the agreement.
Oh,
was
I think
this-
they'd be thrilled.
This
They would be
this
thrilled.
type of event doesn't require police.
I don't
services,
think
and
so,
this is-
because we're gonna have it will know when they're full to capacity, and we'll have the ability to let people know that they can't sign up for it any longer, and
One thing that I'd be sensitive to, Gary, is making sure in terms of any signage, temporary that we were to do on the buildings, that we're in compliance with our own ordinance. So, if it's one sign and it meets the ordinance, or two signs and meets the ordinance, personally, I'd be okay with that. But I don't think, especially even if we're a presenting sponsor, I don't think we should ever violate our own ordinances.
That's right.
I talked to Karen about that, and they're all going to be the same size banners as you have on the boulevard, so they're within the signage.
But I mean, are you talking about the ones on the buildings?
Yes, they're just going to hang like banners, like the Iron Man did on the Jennings building during Iron Man.
I think we can make sure that we're okay there.
If we can do that offline with staff, as long as staff says we're meeting the ordinance, personally, I'm okay with that part. I do agree with our old buildings, we're trying to be so careful. I don't think we should put new hardware if we can avoid it. But if we have some existing,
I think if you're inclined to approve, we'd have to make sure that the scheduling of the banners, because we have a lot of people that all want to be on the boulevard and on the banners, and we've got a lot of events, I think that are
they're pretty full, aren't they?
I made arrangements and it's available that time period for that number of visitors.
okay. All right. Thank you, Karen.
But again, we don't put those up. Someone
No.
else would put that up, and so you'd have to deal with
I guess
them.
there's someone that Karen has that we would
Work with.
And to be honest, I asked for money in my RAP grant for the buildings, but I haven't heard from them, and I have to go to print, so.
Well, you won't receive any
Wouldn't
RAP
happen in
tax,
time.
even if you got an allocation, you wouldn't have it in time because that won't come out until August.
See, so I'm kind of in a trick bag with going to press.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, I want to thank you for raising that issue up on the conformity to city ordinances. I spent time this morning with a local businessman, and that very issue came up. And so it's really critical that other businesses understand that we are in compliance when we have events such as this, particularly as it relates to signage. So thank you.
Mayor,
Bobby?
I
Yeah.
had one more thing that I got excited and forgot, and it's really important. The use of the digital boards and can I have a banner on the bottom of your website going to this program?
The digital boards, I think, is what Gary has said. We don't have Mark in here, I don't think, but if we're a presenting sponsor, I think it would meet our policy on the digital boards. I can't speak to the other ones you're talking about.
Well, I think we'd have to put a link. We could make a link, but I don't think we're going to be on the front page of we'd have to work that out.
If we could ask,
Because everybody would love to have that same opportunity,
Right.
I'm afraid.
We could just have like the first 3/4 of the page is all
we
we're
would
asking.
be.
No problem.
happy, But something that would be driving people to this wonderful thing that's going on in our art and cultural community.
I think our approval, if the council's so inclined, could just ask that you work with staff. And that would probably be Mark Mortensen on that.
Perfect.
Mark just walked in, so you can make arrangements if that goes that way. So, any other things, Gary, that you think? Okay, I think we probably covered the things that we need to. She's just said we could be.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
That's what I've been waiting
the
for.
genesis was a meeting with all of our arts
Yes.
representatives. So that's why
It was in
I'm
your
just kind of
packet.
laughing, because I think this is
It's
exactly
here
what we
in
were
your
hoping
packet. Yes.
to do with these arts groups, is bring everybody together and get everyone downtown talking about history and art. And so it's a great
Thank you,
activity,
Betty.
right in line with what we asked them to do, I guess.
We just want to make sure we're in compliance with policy and ordinance, and it all comes down to precedents. What precedents are we setting? We want to be fair to everybody. That's all, Bobby.
I
So,
totally understand.
Yeah.
I totally do, and that's why we're here.
okay. So, Betty, now if you are ready, I think.
Okay, if I can see clear to do this.
Good luck.
Yeah. Move to approve a fee waiver for a special event permit, lecture and tour, and the dates would be August 19th 2017 through November 4th, 2017, for the use of the Electric Theater, Dixie Academy, Children's Museum, 3rd floor, and the Pioneer Courthouse. And it would be mainly for the things that would be approved through the city and with the city advice.
And noting that we would be a sponsor.
Yeah, definitely, as a formal sponsor.
Second. I think that covers the gist of it. We have a motion by Betty, second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good luck. Thank you. And I'll be happy to help. So, thanks.
All right, Mayor, maybe we can go back to public hearings. Item 3A, that's a public hearing to consider amending the commercial plan development zone. It's called the 3D commercials out by the pilot area.
Very good. Welcome, John.
So this is a PD amendment, and so the council will be looking at the site plan elevation, and they're also requesting a new use for this particular PD. So this is the location. Pilot is located here. It's just across 120 East at this piece of property here. It's 0.84 of an acre. It's zone PDC. Again, it's part of the 3D commercial plan development. General plan is commercial. Part of the request is to add retail for construction equipment and supplies. We looked through the list of permitted uses, and some of the uses are fairly close to what they're requesting. However, just to make it clear, we thought adding the use would be appropriate. And so the first request would be adding the retail for construction equipment and supplies. This gives you kind of an idea of what they sell. This is kind of a list. It didn't seem out of norm or character that for that particular area. Truck boxes, transfer truck, tanks. So it seemed pretty in line with that particular PD. Next part of the request is the site plan. So here's the site plan. They do meet the landscaping and parking requirement outlined in the code. It's a 2-story building of a total of 6,000 square feet. The building height is approximately 26 feet. Again, they meet the parking and landscaping code. This is the elevation that the applicant provided. There's several different materials they're requesting. The material board is on the desk, and I can pass that around if the council would like to view it. They're proposing cultured stone, a few variations of brick, smooth face, and a few different colors is what they're proposing. This is the site. Planning Commission, they reviewed it. They recommended approval of the site. There are 9 conditions that they attached. All of them are pretty standard conditions with the PD. Number 6 is probably the one that's most specific to this particular application, and the approval was for indoor display is permitted, no outdoor storage or display. So Planning Commission reviewed it and recommended approval for this application.
John, how will that impact the street parking around there? Any issues with that?
They meet our parking requirements,
right?
And so we don't
foresee should be on site.
Issue. Should all be on site.
Right.
Since there really isn't parking on the street there. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions for John? Thank you, John. Is the applicant here, and would the applicant want to make any comments? Now we got trouble, huh?
Hello, Mayor and Council. Appreciate you guys entertaining this tonight.
Just state your name for the record, if you would.
Jeff Mathis, architect with MRW Design. I really don't have anything else to add. Just wanted to come up and appreciate your time and just let you know that I am here to answer any questions. We do feel it fits within what's there. the existing uses. These guys actually sell some of their products to Evco, which is the people right next door. So they work together. And the whole reason they're coming to St. George is because the demand for their truck bed boxes has become so high. And that's the main thing they'll sell, is when you pull your pickup bed truck off and then you stick a utility bed on there. And that's kind of what they're looking for. But I'll be here for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
I told the mayor it looked like a boring store. One that I wouldn't want to shop
But her
at,
husband might.
He thought it looked really exciting.
Yeah. All right, I will open the public hearing at this time for anyone that has come to offer input on this item, number 3A on our agenda. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council.
Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I'd make a motion to approve the 3D commercial plan development zone to a retail store with warehouse space, and to add retail for construction equipment and supplies to the existing 3D use list.
Second.
The location
Specified.
Right.
We have a motion by Ed with a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, next item is a public hearing to consider amendments to the 2016-2017 budget. You should have a copy of those recommended adjustments in your packet. Primarily, it's recognizing some adjustments that were not anticipated when we approved the budget. The first one is an adjustment for the fleet building that didn't get completed in last year's fiscal budget and was carried over till this budget. It also has some minor adjustments in the emergency expenditures at the fleet building when a lift broke and we had to buy it. Some other RAP tax contributions for the art museum. You can see those there. And then the last one in the general fund is the transfers to the capital project fund based on the increased revenues and some of the new permit fees that we had that were more than budgeted during the fiscal year. You can see in the other funds, item 8, that's a capital project fund. This is a housekeeping item. We're just showing $2 million in there. That's a note from the electric fund for the improvements we made under the McKinstry project for the energy efficiency in our buildings throughout the city, and it'll be paid back in reduced utility bills over, I think it's 9 years. But instead of the general fund having that obligation, the capital projects fund will have that obligation instead of the general fund. And then the general fund will make payments to the capital project fund to retire that $2 million loan. There's a $500,000. This is for the All Abilities Park, which we finished. We adjusted the budget mid-project there when we got the $1 million donation, and this is reflecting that change and those additional improvements we did there. Number 10 is $500,000 in the Little Valley soccer fields. This is to increase the current year budget because we had some carryover from the previous year as the project wasn't completed because of delays.
Those are the two fields?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's basically the adjustments that we're recommending to you tonight for the public hearing.
Council, again, this is for this fiscal year.
Correct.
Mayor, I just would ask Mr. Esplin that elaborate a little bit on this parking for the All Abilities Park. This there's been so many inquiries made onto that community garden use there that this has been something that's been on the board to draw from to provide adequate parking, and it's not.
Right. I think when it says parking and the additional amenities, we're not addressing the piece that you're talking about with the community gardens in this budget adjustment. This is for the parking that was temporary parking that we put in there in the cemetery, and it's for the roadway that connects between the All Abilities Park and the light over by the Traveler office building that goes through the cemetery. It's for these are primarily off-site improvements that were made that were not necessarily a part of the All Abilities Park, but they benefited the traffic flow and the connections, and so we'll have to deal with that community gardens parking at some point because it's not funded. And so once you decide if you want to utilize that space and relocate the existing users to another location or not do it, that'll be a different discussion for a different time.
Any other questions on these items, council, before I open the public hearing? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for anyone who might have come to offer input on this item or has questions. 3B on our agenda. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Come back to you, council, for your action.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we amend the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget as outlined.
Second.
Have a motion by Michelle and a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you. Next public hearing, I'll try to introduce it. Trevor Coombs is here to answer any specific questions you may have on some technical and maybe give you the numbers. But under Utah state law, it requires that as part of your budget approval process, and we're talking about the budget for 2017-2018 tonight, it requires a public notice be sent to every single utility account that you have, indicating that there are some transfers to other funds. Let's see, I'm sorry, this is the transfer to other funds. This is a new one. I got ahead of myself. This one is there's two notices that's required under state law. One is to show you and have public comment on the transfers that we make between our enterprise funds and the general fund, such as the electric energy services fund, the water fund, the wastewater fund, all those funds. We charge each one of those funds a fee, and that fee is, and you should have a copy of that, that fee is part of my time, your time, the treasurer's time, the budget person's time, and there's a list of those that we have, and we transfer those funds from our enterprise funds to our general fund. And primarily it's a cost of doing business, because if they were doing it themselves, they would have to hire somebody to do those activities or pay those fees. And so this is the first year that the state law was amended to require you to notice up all the residents of the city through their utility bills and provide them an opportunity to come in and comment on those charges. It has no effect on the bills that people would pay, because they would have to pay it either themselves or pay the general fund for providing that service to them. So that's what the item is.
Any questions or comments on that, council, before I open the public hearing on this? Again, this is so we're in compliance with state law on these matters, as Gary has indicated. All right, I'll open the public hearing for any who may have come to offer comments or ask questions on this item 3C. And when you come forward, if you just state your name for the record. And again, as Joe just mentioned, make sure we're on the same page, because there are several budget-related items here on the agenda. So go ahead.
My name is Jerry Trojan. I've been a citizen since 2010. I retired here. I retired after 41 years.
Would you just pull the mic over?
I retired after 41 years of governmental service, governmental accounting, if anybody enjoys the drudgery of that. But I am a CPA and MBA, so I've done that type of work regarding these type of accounting systems for many years. There's a good reason why it's a state law that you now have to notify people, because many communities do not appropriately charge the general fund, for example, for utility services. Having free services leads to bad accounting, and bad accounting leads to bad decisions. So there's a reason underneath all of it why you do the accounting and why you do the accounting specifically. So the state of Utah is catching up with many other states that either have a law requiring this or of course the International Finance Officers Association and the International City Managers Association do encourage this type of activity. And of course, where it rests, where the decisions rest for these are the policies made by the mayor and the council. You know, I was an administrator, and as an administrator, you can only bring things forward, and then the mayor and the council have to adopt the policies that would so state. Okay, and I'll speak to both items now because I know that there's two separate items from what I understand on the table. The services provided by other funds for the utility fund specifically. There should be an accounting for those. For example, on purchase orders, you can count purchase orders, number of employees, you can count number of employees. I don't know about the cost accounting associated with it, but once you set up the cost accounting system, it becomes very easy to manage. So any of the transfers coming out of the utility funds into the other funds should be based on a cost accounting basis. Therefore, you're making sure that you're keeping the funds used for the purpose that they're stated. In terms of the free services provided by the water system or the electric system, those should not be allowed. All services provided to the city by the utility systems should be accounted for and should be paid. And that's my experience that I would like to relate to you, and I would encourage you to work towards a policy of making sure that the accounting systems are appropriate.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. I'd like to have Gary just respond to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to respond to that. We do have a list of and we do it by cost accounting. We charge a percentage of people's time, the cashiers, the treasurer, the accountants, and we allocate those costs based on the amount of time we anticipate they spend doing services for those utilities. And so we've done this for 100 years. We do not transfer any monies from their fund balances to the general fund as a just to the capital project fund or whatever it may be. We feel like our services that we're charging them, like for instance, the water energy department overall pays 3.1% of their total budget towards these costs of administration, which I think is cheap. 4.6 for the water, 7.9 for waste collection. We have all that. It's public record. It'll be published on the web as soon as within 30 days, I believe, since 7 days. 7 days after, if you adopt the budget, that will be published so they can look at them, they can see the percentages. We don't have any problem with that. With regard to the comments about the unbilled services, we know how much those services are. We keep track of the gallons used. We keep track of the costs of that, as well as the power that's being generated to provide the water. The council in the past has always said, yes, we recognize that from a true accounting standpoint, that might change the cost of water. It might change the cost of power. It's not going to reduce the cost of power because you have a $66 million budget, but it might show you what the true costs of providing that power system are. However, my comment is that there are benefits that we should receive from those power companies, because if they were private companies, we'd pay it, but they'd be paying taxes and they'd be paying in lieu of fees. And so in the past, the council has chose to say we'd rather go ahead and provide those services and not raise property tax or not change those general fund revenues, because the general fund revenues are more strict. Plus, it's a good idea that the vast majority of the people that are using your parks and are using those facilities, and then you pay for that through the water department, they're paying a share of that cost that has a nexus there. So that's the reasoning behind it. We do know what they are. We publish it. We keep track of it. We know how many gallons are used. We know how many kilowatts are used, and that's set out and sent to the state with regard to the numbers that we use. But you are entirely lawful to do that. So it's a practice that you could change, or you could say, we're going to continue that practice.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the explanation. Again, it's really, in a sense, as long as we track it, I think that's what matters the most to me personally. But otherwise, it's going to come out of the citizen's pocket one way or the other.
It does come out of the citizen's pocket, but it depends on which pocket. That's right.
It's whether it's a property tax, for example,
Yes.
or a fee, utility fee.
That's correct.
Yep.
I think it's important to understand as well, Mayor, that when you look at the entire budget of the water department and the electric department, it's a very small amount of subsidy, so to speak. So if you did allow that revenue to go up, I don't believe that it would affect the current rates that are being charged, because you're not going to lower the rate by the revenue that's generated from that. From a cost accounting standpoint, this gentleman is correct. The cost of doing business, we know what that is, and we are using, we're not charging the true cost of that water or that power. But it's insignificant in the total $66 million of the electric fund budget that you're subsidizing at $500,000. Like I say, it's 3.1% in the transfers.
And the bottom line is we're in compliance with state law and fulfilling our fiduciary responsibilities without question.
Yeah, it's an option to us, as
Right.
Gary said. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate your comments.
But on this particular one, we're not talking about unbilled services.
First time.
Right.
Yeah, don't confuse me.
Public hearing is.
He just was doing both at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are related somewhat.
Yeah, I understood that. It just
Yep.
keep us on track of what we're.
Any others that would like to talk about item 3C? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Come back to you, council. Again, let's see, on this item, we don't need to take any action. On the other item, Gary, do you want to make any comments on that?
No.
D, since we've kind of covered it in this item. So I will open the public hearing just in case anyone else would like to comment on this. Number 3D, this is regarding the non-reciprocal transfers for unbilled services, as Gary just spoke about, from the electric and water funds to other city funds. Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing. And again, we don't need to take any action on that one either.
That's correct, Mayor.
So E?
Well, E is a public hearing on the proposed 2017-2018 fiscal budget for the city. So I guess we've had one public hearing. We've had several work meeting items where the departments have made their presentations. So I would guess that this is the time for the council to take public comment on the budget. And if you want to make any changes, do you want to make any additions, subtractions from that proposed budget? We'd have some items that we want to clarify a little bit as part of that, as far as projects have been talked about as part of the review process that we might need to get on record as well if you feel inclined. So.
Perfect. What I'd like to do first, if this makes sense, Gary, are there items, council, from our meetings over the last few weeks that you would like to make sure are on record that we include or exclude from the recommended budget before we pass it? Would that be a good way to start,
That's
Gary?
fine. I don't know if you want to do that after your public hearing, though.
That's what I wasn't
it
sure
may
whether-
change, if there's something that somebody suggests in the public comments that might change your feelings on if you want to make a change. It'd probably be better to do it first after public hearing.
Okay. Well, let's do that. So I'll open the public hearing now for any who have come to discuss anything to do with the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, fiscal year budget.
This is Dave Patton. He's the president of the Sun River Board of Trustees. My name is Eric Nelson. I'm the vice president. I think we want to first of all thank you for putting the flag back out. I think it looks fantastic out there, and we really appreciate that. I think most of you have been out to Sun River, and you have a letter in front of you that we passed out just before the meeting that's been signed by all the Board of Trustees. And we would like you to consider planning for the Invocation Parkway for next year.
I haven't had a chance to read the letter, but happy to read that and have discussion at another time with the council.
That's fine, all right.
Is that
Thank you.
okay?
That's okay.
But I see the gist of it. So yeah, I'll be happy to talk about it. Gary, have you had a chance to read the letter? Okay. So council, have you all got a copy of it then? Ed mentioned this to me, that this was coming, so appreciate the meetings and the discussions you've already had, obviously, as a board, and we'll be happy to go through this and consider it and meet with you as appropriate.
Right, thank you.
Sound good? Okay, thank you. Any others for the fiscal year, the proposed fiscal year budget, 2017-18 fiscal year budget? It's only, what, the general fund, 66 million, total of a couple hundred million.
218.
Yeah, 218
after you
million.
take transfers out.
We do appreciate all the efforts. I will close the public hearing at this time. Come back to you now, council, for, let's start with any items that you want to make clear from our discussions over the past month or so that are in or not in the budget, and then we'll give some time to Gary to clarify a couple things that he's been working on, again, that we've been talking about as part of these discussions. Comments?
Well, Mayor, I would go ahead and just mention that, of course, goes without saying that our biggest charge is providing protection of life and property in the community. Secondary would be the fiduciary responsibilities we mean as to how this money is being spent. I think that this particular budget calls for 26 additional personnel to be employed.
No, the budget doesn't call for that.
Nope. It was just
That was
things that we discussed as to
But that's
where
what
the
they
money
were
would be.
requested. That was
Right.
requested from the various department heads. I'm not sure it was 26 or 26? 26 new positions, and the recommendation, I think, was 8. Okay.
So
City manager recommended.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we look at that aspect of it, we did discuss that if we need to come back and look at it, for example, within the public safety, the police department, the limit of 2 additional traffic officers was mentioned, that we can come back and visit that into the budget year.
Anytime.
At any time. So if there is a need because of all the demands being made, that they will be looked at. That's the point I wish to make.
Good point. And as we did tonight, as we amended the current fiscal year budget, really we can do that anytime the council decides they want to do that.
As long as you got revenues to back it up.
Oh, there is that. We don't get to print our own money, do we? Like some governments.
I would like to include in this budget, if we could, the rifles for the PD.
Right. We talked about that a little bit last week. I believe that was about $88,000, if I remember right.
Someone needs to test fire those, don't they?
Yeah.
At the
You get
range.
to, yeah.
At least
They said you could.
Would it be appropriate to talk about the money for the courthouse? This point?
It's already
it's
in.
already in.
Okay.
I think if I could maybe just
Yeah,
the
you
ones
could.
that I have,
That would be great.
the ones that I have, and the discussions that you've had before in the hearings with the department heads, these are the ones that Deanna and I came up with that you wanted to consider. The rifle replacements was $88,000. We, as doing the budget, we failed to include 2 vehicles for the police department for the new officers that we approved. We included the bikes for the traffic control people, but we didn't have the vehicles, and so we'd have to make that adjustment. It's about $98,000. We do have additional revenues since we talked that we're adding to the end of the revenues that would cover that. Lock conversions for buildings for security. Is
That was
one
something we talked about.
Okay, that's at $20,900, I believe.
Sound about right, Mark?
That's what Mark wanted.
Right. Yeah. Automotive gate opener, that's a small amount, it was $5,000. Some of these were not able to get done during the current fiscal year that they were budgeted.
What was
When
that
they carried-
again, Gary?
It's a automatic gate opener at the maintenance facility at Little Valley Fields Complex. It was in your current budget, but didn't get done before the end of the year, and so they want to carry it forward.
Carry it over.
Same way with the $9,350 for the accounts receivable software upgrade. They're working on it, but they're not going to get it done before the end of the year, and they'd like to carry that forward. You probably haven't heard of these two. The other one was the discussion that was mentioned about the legal secretary request regarding the body cam requirements, and that those are the ones that I understood that you talked about. Also, from the discussions with the Leisure Services Department regarding RAP tax and capital project funds and finishing up some projects, we're recommending that you consider a $1 million contribution to the RAP tax fund from the Economic Development Fund to finish along with $500,000 in property sales that we're currently doing. We're selling property on Bluff Street to UDOT, and also some property out by the Dinosaur to the Greyhawk folks, to include that, and also $1 million from the Park Impact Fund. There's a balance in the Park Impact Fund of unallocated revenues from parks. Fees have been paid, and we would like to suggest that we take those plus the RAP tax and do these projects. First would finish the Worthen Park project at $1.8 million.
This would be kind of phases 1 and 2, right?
Kind of a combination of phase 1 and 2. There was 3 phases you talked about before.
Henry, name that park.
Yeah, we're going to name it the Gary
there you
Esplin
go.
Park or something.
Thank you. Yeah. Little Valley Sports. We talked about the soccer field renovations at Little Valley and creating a sports complex out there that would be economic driven by tournaments and all the fields out there, and redo the fields, connect them, make more fields with the combinations that we can do, and that would be $1.6 million. The Tonnequin Park, part of the RAP tax program you've already approved, would be $2 million. And that's basically what those funds would be used for. And that would take care of with the changes at Sun Bowl, with the Bicycle Skills Park and the Tonnequin. That would basically zero out the bond that you did through the RAP tax, and then we'd end up doing what we said we were going to do as part of the election for that RAP tax.
Everything that you've just talked about is what we described, for the RAP tax. And as you remember, just for the parks and recreation portion, we did bond, as you remember, so we could have the money up front, and then in the next, what's left, 7-8 years, then we pay those bonds off. So otherwise, you'd have to do it reverse of that and save your money until you could do some of these big projects. So I don't know how you feel, council. I think that's a good use of those funds because it's what we indicated, the kinds of things we indicated we would do. And I think, whatever we call it, Central Park or whatever, I think the Vernon Worthen Park does need these improvements. And they've been working hard on it.
They're ready to bid right now,
Yeah.
and so that's why it's critical, I think, they're getting ready to have to redo the bid document, but we're very close to being able to bid that, and we could start construction on it and get that playground moved. And that, I think that 1.8 for that project would get what you wanted with the trail all the way around it, and the parking that would help also the Lions and Sun Bowl. And then make some general improvements. That I think 10,000 square foot, I believe, is the size for the playground.
And it keeps that, right?
It would keep that amount of square footage. It would provide for a softball underneath it with sidewalks and make us ADA compatible. I think it's just a good expenditure of those dollars.
Nothing with the volleyball courts on that first part, though,
No.
right?
They're just leaving them where they're at.
For now.
I think
That'd
they're
be
making
nice.
some changes,
And the-
demolishing around it and cleaning it up and doing some things. But
That and pickleball would be phase
right,
3 or 2 or whatever we call it.
Gary, was there, from that last drawing we saw, the sidewalks are around the outside. Was there in the other phases that we had some of those go into the park? It also wasn't there?
my understanding is there's a connection from the trail that goes all the way around
Yeah.
to the playground.
Okay.
And it says, I think in the document, it says multiple sidewalk connections is what it lists. And I don't know, Shane, if you've got any specifics about that,
But that's not
that's
the
how I
first
remember
thing.
it.
That's not
on
this-
the first phase.
Yeah, that's in
It
this.
is,
Well, the one around the
The one
perimeter.
around it's in
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
the sidewalk connections are too.
Good.
Okay. Any questions on that? Is that acceptable? It's everything we've talked about over the last month and a half, yeah.
We all know this, but it's our oldest park, and it had some problems. And when I was at the Daughters of the Pioneer Women Museum, those ladies said, I asked them, I just thought this is a good opportunity. I said, why is it named that? And they said what we had already heard, that it was an educator. But it was really interesting how they said he was a really great man and he was kind. And Gary, you might even remember him.
He wasn't very kind if you went into his office for a truancy or for a violation.
Sounds like those ladies had lived a different life than you did. But anyway,
For sure.
That's a good one. I'm sure they did.
anyway, it was their suggestion that we take either the Vernon or the Worthen, and not the Vernon Worthen is just a really big mouthful. So you might consider that. I know this is slightly off subject from the
Well, I
budget.
really believe that you ought to look at where the land came from originally. If you're going to name a park, there is somebody that donated, I think, that property, and you could always call a portion of the park Vernon Worthen Playground or whatever
Right.
it was.
Or just Worthen Playground.
Worthen or whatever.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we don't typically do that,
Yeah,
because the
There's so
names,
many-
yeah, so many people do contribute, and so where do you start and where do you end? But like we did in Town Square, the Dan MacArthur Parade Grounds, it's still St. George Town Square, but I think there are things like that we can do.
Yeah.
Gary, anything else? Council, anything else?
Mayor, just for the transparency and for those listening at home and the public in general, is just to identify that $66 million in the general fund is comprised mostly and inclusively for the departments listed: general government, public safety, economic development, public works, and leisure services, the items we covered today. And that is primarily paid for by sales tax and property tax. And there is no increase in property tax, although property tax is going to show an increase of 6% because of growth, not because of rates of property
Right.
tax.
Yeah, that's correct. The other thing, it's good to mention that this preliminary budget that we're going to vote on in a moment with these other additions or changes has been available on the website, and the actual budget will be available at any time on the website for the public. So,
And just for further clarification on the property tax, because that becomes a big issue with some people, that the city only receives approximately 14% of that. The remaining 86% goes to Washington County Water Conservative District, and that takes
In the school
School
district.
district.
and the school district.
Yeah. Mayor, I think I probably need to make sure that when we talk about the budget, if you approve the budget, it does include the recommended fees, and we'll talk about the fees in a minute. We can always delete some of those if you want, but the revenues include those fees, and the one primary fee that the people will see will be the 10% increase in water rates that is a pass-through from the Water
10
Conservancy.
cents.
10 cents per thousand, excuse me. 10
per
cents
1,000 gallons.
per 1,000 gallons, sorry, not 10%.
Deanna and Trevor were back there.
I know, they were ready to come after me. But that's just a pass-through from the Water Conservancy District. That's the wholesale rate increase that we have to pay it, so we're just passing that on.
And again, we talked about this. That's probably going to be every year for the foreseeable future. We'll
That's right.
probably see that pass through. So as they get that rate to where they believe it needs to be.
And we pay how much for 1,000 gallons of water?
A few bucks.
No, less than $1. It's around a little over $1, I believe.
What I pay for a little bottle of
Oh, yeah.
Dasani?
Yeah.
Also, Mayor, I think that just to make sure that we have it on record, if you approve the budget and you increase the wholesale rate for the culinary water, we have irrigation water that we provide through various entities that when they buy that water from us, it's tied to the rate for culinary. So we need to adjust our rates for the irrigation water that we are providing to those that use that irrigation water with that rate increase the same as what we change our rates. And we found out that that we have larger meter sizes, and so the 3/4 inch normal connection would be rated. Then if they have a bigger connection, that would be prorated as well. Because there's some now we're getting for irrigation rights that have a 2-inch connection, maybe like Smith's or whatever, and they're doing irrigation. They're using non-potable water, so we need to have a rate for that, and it's similar to what the 3/4 inch would be, but based on the size they can take.
Okay.
The size of the meter.
Okay, council. So we've held the two public hearings now on this. We've had presentations from city management. We've had lots of good discussion. Are you ready to, someone ready to make a motion to approve a resolution regarding the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget?
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution regarding the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget as
has been presented and with these additions and changes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed with a second by Joe. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 See, kind of freaked everyone
Confused
out.
everybody.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again. Thank you, Deanna, and all of our department heads. Gary, thank you for your incredible work on this $218 million effort.
Thank you.
Take a
And
vacation,
change.
Dee.
Yep. Sleep, will you? Can you sleep tonight?
All right, let's go to the next item, which is ordinances. We'll let the chief come up if he promises not to take very long and present the fire restrictions that we're proposing for the holidays.
Chief, I hear that new ladder truck's getting close.
We're hoping next week.
Training on it right now. I saw him
Yeah.
training on it at the Dixie Center
And
today.
they're going to train on it all next week, all the crews, and
Good.
then we'll have it in service. So
Excellent.
be a happy day.
Remind us about fireworks.
This is our annual restrictions on not only fireworks, but the ignition of ignition sources in these designated areas. It goes along with the map that we've done the last several years. I'm going to find my other one. It mainly covers areas around the washes and the plateaus and hillsides. There it is, last page. It's in with 250 feet of any wash or river drainage, within 250 feet of any open space, hillside or plateau, and within 250 feet of undeveloped lands or lots unless cleared of combustible materials. So we do have the map that should be in your packet. It's been updated for this year through our GIS department. With the new developments out in the Little Valley and up in the Ledges area, we're able to open some of those up that were restricted before. But it is on our website, the city's website, where people can get on and see where those,
You can put in your address.
yeah. Right now, I don't think it's interactive like it was the last couple of years, but IT's working on that to get
Okay.
it to where you can put your address in. It'll be out there. We've already had several fires, including one on the Black Hill, about 10 to 15 acres. So we want to keep this as minimal as possible with still allowing fireworks. I know we have 50% of the citizens want us to ban everything, and 50% want us not to do anything. So,
That's right.
We try to meet in a happy medium, and the last few years we've been very successful with our citizens lighting those off in the right areas. We always have some that don't, but again, if we do have areas that are restricted that they're lighting fireworks off, they can be cited for that. And then also, if they cause any type of fire, they can be cited for the discharge and then cited for the suppression cost and any damages that they cause. So we just ask everybody to be careful and, be safe with what they're doing. So this, again, we just do every year, and it just puts that restriction in place. Then we have to also put it in with the state fire marshal's office with all the other cities that do pretty much the same type of ordinance.
Would you say, Chief, has the compliance been pretty good the last couple of years?
It's been really, really well received. I think 3 or 4 years we had a pretty active fire season, started by fireworks and other things, welding and cutting in these areas. So again, it's not just fireworks, but it's, if people are putting, wrought iron fences in and things around their homes, they can come get a permit from us, and if they're in a restricted area, and we can make sure that we're taking the precautions necessary to protect those areas. But we've had several fires started from those. But the fireworks have been really successful as far as compliance the last few years. So our fires are down this time of year in July when those are legal, which again is 3 days prior to the holiday, the day of, and then 3 days after. So as long as they're not buying them out of state and bringing them in, we're good.
So we basically have 2 weeks in July where it's legal, and that's according to state law.
Yeah.
Well, Chief, you say the fires are down, but I was working out in the yard last week, man, I've heard those sirens go on and go on. They're all in fire trucks with those loud horns sounding. If they're not fires you're going to, there's a lot of calls for fire service.
Yeah, we're always increasing our calls every year, it seems like. But again, we're still busy with fires, but the fireworks fires have been down the last couple.
And the people in Little Valley will appreciate that new fire station, I'm sure.
Any questions for the chief, council? If not, I think we'd be ready to have a motion approving this ordinance prohibiting fireworks in designated areas of the city.
So moved.
Have a motion by Michelle and a second by Betty.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Joe this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Mayor, while he's standing there, I don't want him to talk because he talked too much the last time. But this Division of Forestry, item K under staff reports, we had a presentation last work meeting regarding this state initiated program where we agree with the state forestry on helping provide fire coverage in unincorporated areas and how those are billed. And if you remember, the services that we're providing through our existing staff would meet any costs that we would have in any charge that would be under this agreement. It allows us to utilize our resources, our neighbors, the state resources to deal with, and the BLM to deal with those fires that are outside our jurisdiction or inside our jurisdiction in hard to fight areas as well. So I think it's a good program.
We had fires.
Yep.
That was crazy.
So
second.
Whoa, we have a motion by Betty, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Let's see, this is not an ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
we can probably delay the fees unless you want to talk about the ordinance adopting the fees, or you want to go to the other items where there might be somebody here for.
Let's do that, Gary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll go back to staff reports. This would be item F, report from the Planning Commission meeting maybe we could take the item H, and then all the rest of them are pretty well planning items. Item H is the actual amendment that I talked about earlier tonight between the Energy Department and the General Fund regarding the McKinstry Energy Performance Contract. This is amending that note that's existing, $2 million, and allowing the Capital Project Fund to assume that note rather than the General Fund. It just needs approval.
Any questions on this? We talked about this already, but
Motion to amend the interfund note dated November 15th, 2015 between the Energy Services Department and the General Fund.
Second.
motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
John,
carries.
you're up.
Hey, could we maybe do 6G so those ladies can go home and don't have to sit here through the rest of the meeting?
Who's that?
Well, isn't it the conditional use permit, or is it on staff reports?
It's on staff report. It's next
the
one
first
anyway.
one? Okay.
It's second.
Third item on staff reports.
You're welcome.
We're thinking of you.
Go
We're
ahead.
paid to be here.
Well,
Oh,
kind of.
You get paid?
That's a huge stretch.
All right, John. We're starting to get punchy already.
So the first four items on the Planning Commission report is setting the public hearings to be advertised for the July 6, 2017. First item 1A is consider a zone change amendment to develop a C-store, covered fueling, a car wash, and a 50-foot flagpole in the PDC zone, approximately
150?
Just 50.
Okay.
This request is to develop a Terrible Herbst. The location is at the northeast corner of the intersection of Sun River Parkway and Pioneer Road. Applicant is THSR Holdings, LLC. 1B, consider a zone change from A1 to R18 on 20.71 acres for the Arbors Phase 6. It's located approximately 3040 east, 2890 south. 1C, consider a zone change from A1 to R18 on approximately 2.92 acres. The location is approximately 3425 east, 3230 south for Elmwood Estates Phase 5. The next is 1D, consider a zone change from A1 to RE 12.5 on approximately 24 acres. The location is at approximately 2240 east, 3670 south for Fieldstone Phase 5 and 6. Those are the four items.
Motion to set the public hearings for July 6th.
Second.
We have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public hearings are set.
Next item is 2A. It's also 6J on the City Council agenda. It's consider a request by SBA Communications for a 100-foot cell tower to be located at approximately 4095 South, 1630 East, St. George, Utah, in the M1 zone. So the cell towers over 35 feet are required a conditional use permit, so this is for the additional height. There's a current tower located at this red location, and what they're requesting is to move it from this location to the green.
So this tower will be in the middle of a salvage yard.
It will. That's the request. And so the current location is M1. This is a salvage yard. It will be located approximately this location. It will have to meet two setback requirements. The front yard setback, and also is required to be 150 feet from a single-family residence, and so it'll be located in this area. And so again, it is located in a salvage yard. This is showing what the tower would look like if it's installed, and so it's not actually installed. This is a photo simulation. This is the existing tower that's requesting to be relocated.
So it'll go away.
It'll go away, correct. This is the site plan showing the location. Again, it will have to meet the setbacks. The tower, again, they're requesting 100 foot, which is the maximum that the ordinance allows. Planning Commission reviewed it, and they recommended approval of the height.
Any
Their-
conditions?
Their conditions are standard conditions. They were okay with chain link slats to cover the buildings associated with the tower.
So, John, they want to go up 100 feet. How many things are they going to mount on that pole? Do they have 3? Wow.
And so this is a conditional use permit. Planning Commission did review the A through K findings and found that that they were mitigated.
Motion to approve the conditional use permit for the cell tower to 100 feet.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I was telling the mayor, I was in Vegas over Memorial Day weekend, and all of a sudden we're just driving down the road, busy commercial, pine tree cell tower, right in the middle of nowhere. It made me laugh. It looks so out of place and ridiculous.
It was a low water pine tree, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it
always,
was a low water
it's always
pine
good
tree.
when we make good decisions, huh?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go to item, is it 6J? Okay.
That's right, because someone's clock is ticking right now, and we want to get him out of here as soon as we can.
Okay.
Paying him to be?
Try to help his client a little bit.
We just did 6G, didn't we?
No, we did
No.
not. We did the conditional use permit. 6J is a separate agreement. They're going to put a cow in the salvage yard, and
That's right.
they'll explain that.
You guys think we're lying. That's really what we're doing.
Okay, so what is it? Who's presenting? Russ?
Russ Gallion is here representing SBA Communications, who is putting up the cell tower, relocating that cell tower to the salvage yard site.
I had never heard of cows before, and apparently you hadn't either, because there's nothing in your ordinances about it. But thanks to Sean for being a little creative with something that you just haven't dealt with before. But basically, cows are cell towers on wheels. Basically, it's a telescopic thing that moves up, but otherwise it's on basically a little trailer type thing that's pulled around and gets connected to all the electrical and other wiring that's needed. The reason that we need a cow is there's a very short-term need to take down the other tower. When this was first put in a few years ago, I guess probably about 3 years ago, I'm not sure, certainly my client thought that they had an appropriate use there, but it turned out that the Courthouse Association decided that they didn't think it was allowed under their CC&Rs. Litigation ensued. Ultimately, that case was lost and appealed and lost. And the final order came out just a month and a half ago, where it has to be removed by July 25th. So you've got some real tight time frames there. It's just not practical to be able to build a new tower and get all that done, because there's other environmental things that have to be done outside of even the city approvals. And so the cows actually will allow the temporary signals to be done. One of the users is AT&T. The other one's GoGo. AT&T is a very large user, and that covers that whole area. So they tried to find a place that was very close to when it would have to be taken down. This actually is right next to the Fort Pierce Industrial Park, where the Blake property is, but not in their park, so it's not subject to the covenant. And it will be right along the road, about an 80 by 80 little slot. It will be within the required setbacks, including setback from a residential zone, which we understand is a holding zone, basically. But I think we're meeting all the requirements. It's a little unusual, because I don't think the city's had cows before. You know, if you have, for example, a disaster of some sort where you lose one, then these can be brought in. Well, this disaster was court-made, but basically, in order to keep the service going in that area for those two carriers, they're badly needed, actually. I think one of the drawings showed what they would look like with all three of them out there at once, but the location in the middle where the permanent tower will go, they'll be flanked by the other two while they're being built in the middle of the, in the 80 by 80 slot. And so that's basically where we are.
Then it goes away after the tower's done.
Yes, and it's only a 6-month permit. It's extendable for good cause shown for another 6 months. My clients are indemnifying you if you have any legal costs or problems with this. This was an agreement that was negotiated with the city attorney's office and the usual back and forth, the lawyering stuff, so. There is an agreement that has been prepared that I believe protects the city's interest, but yet allows it to occur so we can mitigate the damage from possibly not having the signal out there.
This is one of those things I think we should just have been able to do without, where it's a temporary thing, but whatever the attorney says.
And it's on our agenda as 6J. It really should be 6P. So that's why a little bit of confusion. It was on the addendum, okay?
The addendum was 6J, yeah.
Just,
6P.
yeah, we already had a 6J, so anyway.
Gotcha. Seems like a no-brainer. It has to be done to get for
Yep.
the transitional
Yep.
period. It's going to go away.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve the cow.
Second.
Don't you love that, Jimmy? You
Love
got to
it.
approve the cow.
Actually, it's called the Agreement for Temporary Emergency Cellular Services for 2 current customers by allowing temporary emergency cow coverage.
In the lawyer's voice, even. So moved.
Yeah. And Betty, you still second that? So moved?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Moved.
Any opposed?
Who moved?
That was Jimmy. He couldn't help himself. Thank you, Russ.
We do want to thank the legal department for helping us with this because it wasn't really covered by your ordinances, and it was very kind of them to find a creative way to handle this.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Jimmy's used to talking to the cows when he's out there with them,
They don't
They
really
move
sound
back,
like
huh?
that.
It's fascinating. Just go watch a cow eat. It's fascinating. Serious.
Sounds like it.
Next item on the agenda is 2B. It's also
Or-
6G on the city council agenda. It's consider a request to establish and operate Leap and Learn, a in-home preschool child daycare business for a maximum of 13 children. Property is located at 2985 East, 1975 South Circle, and is zoned R110. So our ordinance allows for child care or preschool, any permitted if you have under 8. And so what the request is 13, which triggers a conditional use permit. And so that's the request this evening, is for the 13 children. They'll be operating Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And again, the request is for 13 children. That does include their own children as part of that request. This is the location. Again, this is a close-up showing their house. They'll be operating. It's R110. This is the floor plan. A few pictures of the applicant's backyard in front of the house. Planning Commission, they reviewed it. They had a couple conditions for approval. One of those conditions was that they recommended for the 13 children unless the state allows for less, and then whatever the state would allow would, if it was less, that would be the maximum number. They also fire inspection, fencing around the property, which the applicant does already have. The applicant also to coordinate drop off and pickup, which Planning Commission, when they reviewed it, seemed to be easier. The fact they're in a cul-de-sac to drop off and pick up. Planning Commission did, again, they recommend approval. There were a few letters in opposition. They did review and go through each of those letters. They reviewed A through K and felt that there was no additional mitigation required for the CUP. And that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here.
What was the
available.
general concerns by those that wrote letters? Was it parking or just the?
It was parking, traffic, and
Just the
noise.
traffic, that was
Yep.
that, not anything else.
Yep.
Any questions for John, first of all, council? Would the applicant like to say anything? Any questions for the applicants? Seems pretty clear. Ready for a
I
motion?
think one of the suggestions was that you talk to your neighbors. And do they still like you?
Awesome. Good. Sometimes
So
they'll-
would you like to come talk to my neighbors?
Yeah, then they'll love them too. Ready for a motion, council, unless there concerns or questions?
I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit to establish and operate an in-home preschool child daycare business with a maximum of 13 children in a home located at 2985 East, 1975 South Circle.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. And of course, this is all subject to those conditions of the Planning Commission. Any questions or comments? Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for being patient tonight. Is Joe frustrated?
It's nice to be seen.
There's going to be more to this later, I'm sure. All right, Wes.
Okay. Item 3A from the Planning Commission report is a request to consider approval of a 19-lot residential subdivision final plat called the Arbors Phase 4. Representative is Development Solutions. Property is located at Olivewood Lane and Sycamore Lane. Zone is R112. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff, and it meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So if you look here on your vicinity map, well, I'll just show you right here. Here's 3000 East, and here's the extension of Horseman Park between Little Valley and 3000 East. So it's just north of what was Phase 1 of the Arbors.
Questions, council? You know where we are, Jimmy.
I appreciate the efforts to make this all better on our agenda, but I'm lost.
3A on
Well,
the...
Gary can.
Here's three. Here,
It's 3A, Jimmy, on the...
It's
Planning
3A on the
Commission.
Planning Commission.
Okay,
But yeah,
so some of the Planning Commission, we have its own agenda number, and some of it we don't. So I'm trying to get back to where the planning.
probably just look at his.
It's not in your packet because it's a report.
Yeah, it was too
Yeah.
soon. It's too
Right
recent.
here.
Well, he's got that, but it's
But normally you wouldn't, these items would not be separately listed on your agenda. See, these
they
are
wouldn't
reports
be,
from the Planning
but
Commission.
that would be in there.
Usually that's in there.
Well, right, that's in there, but I'm just saying that it's, if you look at it on the yellow sheet, it's not ever going to be listed
That's
separately.
right.
I'm not looking.
Right, they're
in
not.
my-
gonna-
And
in
that's
my
just
paperless,
it's
global
not there.
warming friendly packet. It's not in here.
That's
You're right.
correct.
But I will make a motion.
Because the Planning Commission just
It
was
was
held
Tuesday.
last Tuesday.
This, yeah.
This Tuesday. 2 days
We
ago.
have
That's
someone
what I
ready
read.
to make a motion.
All right, excuse me. I meant
And-
climate change. Never mind what I said.
This is in Little Valley, another...
Yep. Motion to approve a residential final plat subdivision for the Arbors Phase 4.
Second.
Have a motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3B is a request to consider approval of 11-lot residential subdivision final plat called Desert Heights Phase 2. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at Desert's Edge Drive and Chimney Rock Drive. Zone is R110. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff, and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. So if you look here in your vicinity map, here's the Southern Parkway right through here. Here is Desert Canyons Parkway. So it's almost to the westerly edge of what they've developed out there at Desert Canyons.
Boy, we got all the soil issues taken care of out there.
Right.
Okay, wow, that's great.
Questions, council? Otherwise, I'm ready for a motion.
Move to approve the final plat for 11 lot, a residential final subdivision plat for Desert Heights Phase 2.
Motion by Betty, second by Michelle. Discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3C is a request to consider approval of a 4-lot residential subdivision final plat called Entrada at Snow Canyon, Chuckle West, Phase 4B. Representative is Bundy Surveying Incorporated. Property is located at Kiva Trail in the Entrada development. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff, and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. So if you look here on your vicinity map, here is Entrada. It's on the west edge of Entrada, right here on the border between St. George and Santa Clara, which is that border there. So it's these two lots here, this lot, and that lot.
Questions, council? Ready for a motion?
Ready? Okay. Motion to approve the residential final subdivision plat for Entrada at Snow Canyon, Chuckle West, Phase 4B.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3D from the Planning Commission report is request to consider approval of 7-lot residential subdivision final plat called the Estates at Valdera Phase 3. Representative is Pope Engineering. Property is located at Petroglyph Drive in the Ledges Development. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So if you look right here, here's SR 18. There's the roundabouts. So it's on the west side of SR 18 down here kind of in the south end of what they've developed up there. The only condition is the low spot in this road is right here. They've created a detention basin right here, which is not within the plat boundary, so they'll need to provide an easement to this homeowners association to own and maintain that detention basin, since these are private roads dedicated to the homeowners association.
And again, typically we don't do private roads, but because this is an additional phase of an existing one, we do. Any other comments or questions, council?
Just to clarify, the catch basin, detention basin, it is owned by the same property owners, so.
Yeah, this property right here, there's a property line right there. This property right here is owned by the developer.
But they'll be giving an easement.
Right.
A permanent, so whoever ends up owning it will have that
Correct.
easement on their property.
Correct.
Will we maintain it?
No, it'll be to the HOA to maintain it because it is private.
That's typical, isn't it? And are we finding, are we finding that to be successful?
Well, in another world, we probably would want to take it ourselves, if there's public streets and public stuff, so that we can maintain it to meet with state requirements. But here, we don't want it.
So in another world, we'll revisit this. We got that going for us. All right, thanks. Any other weird comments or questions? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do we have a motion? We don't. I'm ready for a motion if you are, council.
I have none of this in my agenda, so I can't make a motion. I can see the pictures. Oh, I got to go off the paper.
Yeah. It's that blue paper.
Normally, this is in my electronic packet. That's all I'm saying. The Estates at Valdera. Motion to approve the 7-lot residential subdivision plat for the Estates at Valdera Phase 3.
I will second the blue copy.
We have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Joe. I think that was a second. Seconded the motion on 3D on our planning commission agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah. No kidding. Confused me.
All right, Wes, do you dare do another one?
Yeah, because it's the last one, thank goodness. Okay, item 4 from the Planning Commission report is request to consider approval of an amended residential subdivision final plat called Stonecliff Phase 10 amended. Representative is Pope Engineering. Property is located at Jade Drive and Pinnacle Drive in the Stonecliff development. Zone is PDR. Basically, the amendment is to amend note 10 on the plat, which says certain lots are required to be built as walkout basements only. Note 10 will now read that lots 1002 through 1006, 1021 through 1022, 1029 through 1034, and 1046 through 1049 are to be built as walkout basements only unless otherwise approved by the City of St. George Community Development Department based on a site plan that meets all applicable city standards, including but not limited to grading and setback standards and requirements. That way, if somebody does build a walkout, they have to provide a plan that shows how they're not going to impact them if they decide to build a flat lot.
I didn't
She wants to hear all those numbers.
Just say so moved.
Hey, I got this. Just to make it clear, I got 2 copies of this blue paper. They knew I'd be confused. So I'll make a motion that we approve the Stonecliff Phase 10 amended final plat and easement vacation as outlined.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Michelle. Any
1021, 1022, 1029, 1034, 1046, and 1049.
You feel better? Do you still second it? Okay, we still have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Michelle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You'd think it.
You might have just leased a new car.
Yeah. Congratulations. All right, I think that was the end of Planning Commission. Is that right?
May cause dizziness, nausea, drowning.
Death.
Where are you at now, Mayor?
I'm waiting.
Donation agreement on the
Number I, 6I.
show it.
Basically,
I know Kurt's here. He can probably add to it.
yeah, he can. Basically, let me see if I can get to the. So basically, the donation agreement is donation of land that they're required to donate as part of their plat. So you had Desert Heights Phase 2 tonight. As the agreement goes, you know, they're to dedicate 15% of an area to the city as open space. So they requested to donate some open space down in this area through here, and the city looked at it and said that would make sense as long as it ties to a future park and a trail area. And so there was a memo of understanding. They're not dedicating those properties right now to the city. The city felt like if we're going to take that open space, then there ought to be a memo of understanding as to why, which would be that this park and trail would be dedicated to the city in the future, so it's all consistent, ties together, makes some sense why the city would take that open space.
Absolutely.
So that's basically what the dedication is in the memo of understanding.
Is that 4 lane right there, or just 2?
Right through here?
That ultimately will be wide.
I think it's 4 lane right
That's
through
the
here.
southern
Parkway.
But yeah, it will be.
Right.
Yeah. This is outside of.
But it's outside of that right-of-way already. The right-of-way is already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the right-of-way is established, so it'll be on that side of it, correct?
So Wes, how much is this usable? Is this all flat land, or is
Well-
it going to be straight up a hill, or?
Some of the open space has some topography to it, but there is some flat, but it'll lead over to, there'll be a ability to put a trail through here, which there shows a trail on the master plan, and this is kind of where it will go now. Originally it was somewhere in this area, but now they're going to push it to here. So the open space will have some grade change across it. but-
That's okay, because it's open space. It's not necessarily
Right. But
development
there'll be
space.
a portion of it where you can put the trail and then run the trail from Desert Canyons Parkway over to here, which will ultimately lead you up this wash to the Arizona border or underneath the parkway there where there's a big culvert.
So staff and the developer is all in agreement on this memo of understanding?
Yeah, staff's
Everybody's-
okay. That's why we had the memo of understanding, because we're okay taking the open space now as long as it ties to something. So we requested the memo of understanding as to why we're willing to take the open space as long as it ties together with the future park and that trail system.
So
Awesome.
is that MOU, it exists? Because we don't have a copy of it, do we?
It does. I was supposed to get a copy tonight. I don't know if you brought that with you, but let me tell you that a couple of the conditions, we just need a title report, making sure that, a new title report, making sure that they have the ability to transfer that, and also that the property taxes, including the rollback taxes, are paid before we take title of that property.
So that could be part of the motion if we're so inclined.
Yes.
Motion to approve the open space donation and a memo of understanding, subject to the legal requirements outlined and legal review.
Good catch all. That was a motion by Jimmy with a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Very good. Where to next, Gary? Do you want to go back to 4C or do you want to go forward with those last couple?
Let's take M so Kate can get out of here.
Okay.
We're paying him overtime tonight too, but Cade's subbing for Scott Taylor, who's down in California on the beach. How's that? With his scouts or something. So, M, this is an agreement.
6M.
6M. This is an agreement with Washington County School District for the installation of utilities on 200 or 2000 South. If you've been out in that area, you've seen a lot of work being done. In the budget, we have monies available in the water department to make a connection to the future line that Water Conservancy District is bringing over from Sand Hollow. And we need to extend that line on 2000 South to 3000 East. And as part of the new high school and middle school and all the work that the school district's doing there, they have to provide some utility work on 2000. We felt like that since it's in our budget, it would be better for everybody if we went ahead and approved an agreement with the school district to install our line at the same time they're tearing the road up, so that once we get the line in, we'll come back and pave it. We don't have to tear it up again in 6 months when we're ready to put that line in. So that's the gist of the agreement. I don't know the numbers if you've got them, Gabe.
I think the total between there's three separate portions of the project: the middle school, the high school, and then an addition that gets over to about the South Mountain Church. And I think the total was about $794,000.
Which is under the, we had more than that budgeted, but we've got to do some other work with that as well. But really, it's probably fortunate for us that we can piggyback onto this bid, even though we may have to pay some, some charges to the subcontractor, or the original contractor and the subcontractor. But given our bidding and climate the last little while, it's probably cheaper for us to go this route.
Since they're already in there. And
right.
Yeah.
So you promise, Gary, you won't have to dig up that road again, huh?
Never make a promise you can't keep.
Any questions, other questions, council, on this?
No, but I will make a motion to approve the agreement with the Washington County School District for the installation of utilities on 2000 South.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Kate.
We're going to have to come back to you because as part of this, the pavement on the road, we're going to want to agree with, to make sure, they have to put some pavement in as part of covering their thing up. We may want to come in with an agreement, and Cameron's out of town, but there is an agreement with the school district to likewise do that. However, we don't have the numbers for you tonight, so we'll bring it back to you as soon as we can get those numbers.
Very good.
So we don't pave it twice.
Yep. Okay, that was 6M.
All right, let's go back to then the fees.
6C, or 4C.
Yep.
Yep. 4C.
Okay, that's as part of the budget, and by state law, we are required to adopt by ordinance the fees that we're going to charge for, not necessarily part of the budget, but just for any fees you charge, that we do it by approval of the ordinance. So you've got a handout, hopefully, that shows you the proposed increases and the proposed changes. They're charging of fees. It says increases, but
you've got a hard.
It's attachment.
4C. Oh, I've got it digitally.
It should be in your packet, but here. Oh, we can't give you mine.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically, there's not a lot of major changes. you can look through there and see what we're proposing. Like for softball, they're going up $15 a team, and or else $5 a team, or five, you know. And we've tried to cover our costs and looking at the fees we charge to make sure that we're covering those. And so you can see, I don't know, I'm looking through here and see if I can see any major ones that down at the recreation center, we're proposing that we go to a fee that allow you to do for $3.50. You can do everything in the facility rather than signing up for aerobics class. Then you go to the weight room, you got to pay an additional fee. So that's a slight change. We think that'll be good for our customers. A little bit of fee changes for our using the carousel. We haven't changed these fees for a long time. Swim team monthly fee has gone up because we know that's in keeping with other fees charged around the area. Shane, is there any other major fees that you want to talk about? The field rental fees, the changes we're making there?
How do we rate with other communities? Are we right in the middle? Are we high, low?
Well, in Washington County, we're right there, pretty close with Washington, and Hurricane. I don't know if Hurricane even charges fees, but they've done a study. I don't know if you brought that with you.
I did not, but the only thing that I really wanted to mention, and we did talk about it a little bit in the budget meeting, and that was the philosophy of raising the fee for the out-of-town tournaments in the wintertime when they create damage to the fields. And so we're raising that up. We were quite low. Now we're raising it up to where Washington City and St. George will be the same. That's the only one we really wanted to mention because it was kind of a philosophical change and it was a significant increase. But other than that, they're all fairly simple increases.
Good question, Ed. Any other questions?
Well, certainly the damage done and the wear and tear should be compensated just on a fair basis.
Yeah, we can never really fully get it out of it. Yeah, but it will help. I think it does help, and then I think when we...
It also helps with our maintenance and being able to keep the fields up because, you know, normally we let the leagues use our fields and we can control that, but when we have major tournaments, we have major maintenance costs. Even if it doesn't rain, the wear and tear on the fields ought to be paid for by the user. And that user are those teams and the people sponsoring those tournaments when they're making the money on the registration fees, and we're not getting any of that, but yet we're providing the facilities. So I think that they're fair, and they may not be as much as Salt Lake and up in that particular area because they're, you know, that's where those folks are. But here, they're all coming here and using those facilities during the worst time of the season.
Any other questions, council, on this? Otherwise, be ready for a motion to approve this ordinance adopting certain fees for various services and recreational activities in the city.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Jimmy. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Should we go to 6L?
Yeah, I think are we? Is that the last item? Because we do need to go back after. We do the addendum.
Want to go to the addendum? There was one. Wasn't there one item that we didn't do?
The shade tree.
And then also, you can do L if you like. It doesn't matter to me. What this timing is, we got to go back to.
You could skip L.
Eventually, the
redevelopment.
The redevelopment.
Let's go to 4D, which is on the addendum, and go to the. Are you going to present this, Sean or Gary?
Mayor, I can present that. It's pretty quick,
Okay.
actually. We've
All right.
discussed these changes before to the shade tree board, and this essentially reduces the number of board members from 9 to 5 members. One of those members can be from outside of the city. The other 4 have to be residents of the city. And then it just makes some technical changes as far as some of the duties of the board, because they've been things, for example, on recommendations and public and media information and some other reports that they haven't routinely done and don't do. So it was more of a cleanup item, yes.
Plus, it's difficult. I know I was on that board once, Michelle, like you, and it's difficult to always get a quorum when you've got 9 members, so busy schedules. So any other?
It's not just a way to get rid of the crazy tree lady, Michelle.
Oh, no, she'll still be.
Oh, damn. Okay.
The crazy tree guy is still on there too, though.
Yeah.
Is Gil still on there?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, not that we knew who you were talking about, but
I'm going to tell Gil you said that. You are in trouble.
I was just going to point out that it also only requires meeting twice a year, but you can obviously meet more often than if you need to.
Just gives you flexibility.
Right.
So moved as it's written, the requirements.
Second.
So let it be done and let it be.
We have a motion by Betty and a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Michelle, say aye.
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 Did you say aye? Okay.
Aye.
And, all right. Just had to give Michelle the first chance, and she's on that board. So that's approved unanimously. Thank you. So now, let's see. I think we could go back to 6L. This is considering the approval of a 1-year extension of the city manager's contract. I'll just explain, and Sean will correct me if I say anything wrong, but this is taking the same contract that the city manager has, which expires at the end of this month, and adding a year to it. It is the same contract. Nothing changes. Correct, Sean? He's still out of control.
Yes, that is correct, Mayor, and you will need to vote on this item.
Yes, just so you know, this is a rare opportunity where the mayor is required to vote because of the role I play in appointing. So
we could tie?
Yes.
Then
Gary,
what happens?
let's see what Gary thinks about that. Yeah, Sean, then what
The city
happens?
manager breaks the tie.
Oh, we should do that just for fun.
Well said.
Mayor?
I'd like to move that we.
I'd like to question
Third.
this.
Okay.
Honestly, this sounds to me like if I were reading this in the newspaper, I'd say Gary's going to quit in a year. I don't like the way that, I don't know how to word that, but it doesn't sound good to me.
It's not called quitting if he does. It's called retiring or riding off into the sunset.
I know it,
But it doesn't say he has to.
I know it. I don't know the best way to say it, but I don't like the way it's worded.
Well, it's a contract, and so when you've got a contracted employee, you don't have to actually. And I talked with Sean about this and Gary. He doesn't have to have a contract. He could operate without one. However, if you're going to pay or do anything in terms of benefits that are different from the average employee, then you have to have a contract. So.
Yeah, and it's only fair to him and to us to have a timeline to work on.
Yeah.
So I get what Joe's saying. And you sat through this meeting today and you saw some of the things that we accomplished because of his knowledge, and you have to really step back and go, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Mayor, that's kind of a two-ended. By the way, Gary, this is a milestone. You don't see, I don't know of anyone who's put in this number of years as a city manager. This is unique and special. I did notice that this contract's a copy of 2013 contract.
That's right.
And now we're in 2017, and noticed that any benefits that are going to be provided in this budget for all city employees, that he would be included in that. If there's any changes of this at 4%, it might be adjusted for medical coverage, insurance, plus salary. That should, take place. But to address some of the point that Joe's making, that Gary does have the option just to give us 30-day notice, where he can decide he wants to retire along with his wife and be off and running.
And what about if you put something in there like with a renewal option or something?
You can always do that, just like we're doing it now.
Right.
Although I will point out, state law specifically states that you cannot have an automatic renewal for these types of contracts.
Correct.
So
Well,
that's why we
I'm-
did it this way.
I move that we renew for 1 year.
Second.
Are
Okay,
we
we-
through talking? Or?
Yeah.
Well, we have
are.
a motion by Betty and a second by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion?
This, you know, I'm so impressed with this service and the time that's been involved here. I think that as we progress, you know, you just don't replace somebody with this number of years, and it's going to take time to replace him. And I would take and consider the fact that it might take at least 3 months to go out and advertise nationally or whatever it's going to take to find somebody that can even measure up to what we're accustomed to. So it is kind of I think, Joe, a little open-ended and as to how it's phrased, but a lot of that just falls back on Mr. Esplin and his history with the city, that he certainly keeps the city in mind, and I would expect, Gary, that you sign a 1-year contract, that you intend to stay the whole year.
Well, it's a 1-year contract, but there is a 30-day notice in there, and
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen to me, when we get this age and whatever else. I don't know whether your perspective of me will change in that period of time, but there's certainly both ways in and out. I'm grateful that if you do approve this, that you have enough confidence in me to allow me to continue. Can't tell you for sure when that will end, but obviously if I stay, we'll be back here next year at the same time doing this thing.
Well, I'm glad you're comfortable with it.
I am. That's fine.
Well, and I think the other thing is, I know Gary, he's not going to leave us in a lurch, so.
No, he's not, but I think
Barring a call from-
I think we ought to make it so that we'll decide whether we'll let him release it or not.
I don't like that.
Neither would
I
Deanna.
appreciate it.
So your letter of resignation could just be refused, declined, so that's how
I've
that
had a letter of
works.
resignation in my drawer for
Yeah.
41 years, and I haven't yet to use it yet. Always ready. Okay.
Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to work for you guys and for the city and try to do the best I can. That's all I'll promise you that.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
You want to take
40
care of the minutes, maybe, then you can go ahead and
Let's do that.
adjourn from council after you do that, and we can,
Go
unless
in.
Sean has an item, and because I don't have any closed session items.
Okay, so anyone care to make a motion on the minutes that are noted on the agenda?
Motion to approve the minutes from May 4th, May 11th, May 18th, May 25th, and June 1st, 2017.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle and a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So now I need a motion to, let's see,
You want to take
re,
reports or whatever is on there?
should I do that first?
And then you could just adjourn from this
Yeah,
meeting and then go
let's
into
do
the
that. So any reports, things you'd like to bring up under the,
I'd like to bring up the fact that Betty's granddaughter here has been so precious sitting here quietly. I noticed she's writing and kept busy the whole time, kept her
A lot
grandma
quieter than my
company.
grandkids
That
would
was
be.
really nice.
way to go.
She actually said, "This is so fun."
Wow.
And she didn't have to come. So
That's great.
So maybe someday you run for elected office. You want to?
Not sure about
Yeah.
that. I wouldn't.
Maybe not push it that far, huh? Very good. Well, thank you, Ed. Any reports from meetings that have gone on in the last week?
Not, well, yeah, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah. The mayor and I decided without any of your guys' approval that we will have the field of flags in St. George next year, so not in a dirt field over in Washington.
Field of Flags.
Field of flags, they they have 100, they want to do 200, you could buy a $15 nameplate and dedicate it to somebody. I dedicate it to our son in Iraq and put it on that, and the flags will be up through Sunday. Very nice, but I didn't love the place.
It was a dirt, dusty,
Yeah.
hard rock.
Keep in mind that there could be a person on the council that has access to 100 American flags.
Yes, that's awesome. So that's something. But also at our veterans meeting the other day, you know how we recognize some businesses in the area for all they do for veterans?
Yeah.
We would like to recognize just 4 more for this year, for the rest of this year, and maybe recognize them on the August 3rd meeting, the first Thursday in
Sure.
August.
That works for me.
And I'll get a list to you so we can just have a thing for them. Okay?
Very
Thank
good.
you. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Reports?
Switch Point
Yeah.
board
You
meeting.
had a meeting this
Yeah,
week.
went well.
this
They're
week?
appreciative of the city's efforts on the Riverwalk project. Really close to being able to come up with the funding to make that happen without the tax credits. And they're very appreciative that we've worked it out so that the substation can be used by the police officers again, and that they'll be there shortly.
Right. I think there'd been wasn't there something with the internet over there? I think it's resolved.
It's resolved.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a noticeable difference in the attitude of some of the residents when those guys show up on occasion and there happens to be a police car there on a regular basis coming and going. Most of the residents just mind their own business and do their thing and are appreciative of the help, but every once in a while when you get told no, you can sometimes get angry, and the staff has all expressed their appreciation for the police department, and when they are there, the difference in their feeling of being safe. Not to mention the surrounding neighborhoods as well.
Yeah, and that's a big concern as well. We need to do our very best, because I think no matter our best efforts, it has an impact.
A couple other things, the thrift store, not surprisingly, is a very good funding source for Switch Point, still doing very well, making great money. So you're always welcome to donate to the thrift store. And we're still working really hard on the doggy daycare, which is another that's a nonprofit that funds Switch Point. We're not quite where we want to be with that one yet, but they do have a groomer now. Groomers are hard to find for your pets, so right over there on Sunset, where the old L&R designer was, is a great place to board your dog and get it groomed while it's there. So, and the proceeds all go to fund Switch Point. So.
That's great.
Financially, they doing okay?
Financially, they're doing, it's in a much better spot now, and they've got they're doing a little better in their communication as far as getting fundraiser information out there. We actually have some homeowners associations that have organized efforts to do some sort of service that have offered to do some fundraising for Switch Point, which is another great source. So heading down the right road there, we hope. Yeah.
I don't know how much they actually are short on the Riverwalk project, but the housing fund is giving $500,000 towards that. That housing funds are for affordable housing programs. You might consider, if they get closer, that we do have some monies in there at the end of this next fiscal year. We should have.
I should have brought my paper because I have that.
50.
How much?
150. The next fiscal year in your budget that you approved tonight in the housing fund, remember those housing funds come from the RDAs down in the Fort Pierce at 20%. And they can only be used for affordable housing projects. And we found out that you can only use so much for public facilities, and so we couldn't use all the CDBG funds for the purchase of the homeless facility. So we're using some of the housing funds for that. And we've given the mayor signed, I believe, a commitment for the $500,000 out of that fund to go towards for that Riverwalk. That would leave us at the end of next fiscal year about $150,000. So if, I'm just saying, those districts are closing out, the ones that are making contributions into that fund, and that if you wanted to use some of those funds for affordable housing, I can't think of a better project to make sure it happens. If they get close enough that we could then kick them over the top, that's something to consider.
Okay.
Because, you know, those funds are generated from that, and they can only be used for that, and you know, that might be the appropriate use for it. We don't have any other projects we've been thinking about as far as that big, that this might be of some help to it. So,
Perfect.
Mayor, we're going to write a letter taking a position as to what the federal government's proposing as far as the HUD funding and that $500,000 that we is this going to impact or potentially impact the budget of
The
federal government?
CDBG funding is what's at question.
Right.
There.
well, and the CBG funding, we make our last payment for the homeless shelter this year, so we already have those funds committed.
Beautiful. So
So we'll be
we're-
done
we're
with that.
okay.
So
We're
next
okay.
year, what would happen is if they don't have those funds available, then the projects like what you see you approved this year, like the
All these other
Holly Dove
entities.
Center and all the rest of those, wouldn't be available any longer. We do have some balances that we could spend in that have to be spent for certain uses, like public improvements, not necessarily just homes. But there's 4 years left on some of the districts out in the Fort Pierce that are generating 20% of that taxes that they pay comes into this fund. So you might build it up up to 200 or 300,000 beyond this over the next 4 years. But that, you know, that could be pledged as well. But they wouldn't have access to those funds until the taxes are paid each year. Just something to think about.
Keep that in mind because they're getting fairly close. There's a couple other donors that are about ready to pull the trigger, and so, and the combination of that and some of the, and we got the title issue taken care of, so they felt good about that. And some of it will be a loan, some of it will be a grant, some of it will be the private donations. It's kind of coming together. You know, we have that tenacious board over there that just goes after everything. So other than that, they're feeling really good about where we are right now. Some good stuff, a little bit a better handle on the soup kitchen and the way it's going and the interaction with the soup kitchen and Switch Point. That's going well as well. So one of the things that they talked about and that keeps coming up in a few things is the volunteer. We always talk about how we have a great set of volunteers in this area.
Tapering off.
It's plateaued.
You know,
We're kind of,
it's not just for them.
you're right. It's for everyone, and they've talked about that as the volunteers. I don't know if they've gotten overused or what, but we've kind of tapered off in our number of volunteer hours that have, and we couldn't do Switch Point without the volunteer hours.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes they're not always the pleasant jobs they need volunteers doing. So, anyways, just a thought.
I know it's a concern, so we need to talk
Yep.
that up, don't
Yep.
we?
Yep.
Try to keep that volunteer spirit alive. It's what has helped us do a lot of things
Yep.
in St. George.
Very much so. But we still feel like Switch Point's is a world-class facility, a one-of-a-kind that's kind of showing the way of how, you know, we can have multiple services in one place that they can come together and get where they need to be, come and go. It's not an end-all. It's a way to get to where you need to go.
Remind me to talk to you about something related. But
Okay.
Joe, you mentioned
Yeah, I
something
had
to
some,
me.
had some discussion with Daniel Larkin and others regarding the bicycle recycling, whatever that's called.
Cooperative exchange, what do we call it?
I don't know.
Collective.
Collective. Anyway, there was some talk about they're now using the warehouse that's owned by Larkins, which is not convenient nor anything else. It was first brought to my attention that they would consider the old FedEx building up on the hill. Since then, though, I've heard that perhaps a better place would be the old Trafalgar Cafe downtown. A couple of reasons. That would have the opportunity to bring that to more awareness of the people who need bicycles and see the community get involved in it more. There's no bus that runs up there to FedEx. and there's no way for those who may need a bus or need a bike to even know about it if it's clear up there. So anyway, we ought to just consider that. That building's going to sit there. Perhaps if we could put it to some use, then ultimately, if we sell that property, they may be the persons who tear the old building down instead of St. George City.
So, Joe, do you think they'd be open to it being rather short-term?
I think they would have to be. You know, if we had an opportunity to sell it next week, we ought to sell it next week. But I don't know. I just think it's a great spot.
Well, and that's true. I mean, remind us the purpose of this. They're an organization that is taking bikes from any source, starting with ours, right?
Yeah.
Starting with the ones that are at the PD. I think they got how many from us, Mark, initially? 50, 100? 140. They recondition them. In some cases, they get pretty nice ones donated, and then they sell them or give them. How does it work for?
Well, minimal fee
Very
if
minimal.
it's necessary.
And to those who need them.
Yeah.
And this is
Mark probably knows more about this than I do, so he could probably clarify some of it.
So I just wanted to make sure we all remembered what it was. It's not like it's a for-profit. This is a not-for-profit thing to help people and provide at a low cost a decent bike. I donated an old mountain bike I had that had no suspension or anything, but for someone, it's a perfectly good bike. And so I took one out there, and they had, like you say, I couldn't believe how many bikes they had out behind L&L Mechanical, and they had a volunteer group of people, working on them. So
Could you let the folks know where Trafalgar Hotel is?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joe. Tell us where it is.
Straight across from Munoz Car Sales is a motel, and out front there is what used to be called the hospital thrift store. Before that, it was a Trafalgar restaurant, and it was classic. And but that would, if it was usable, it would be a perfect place for that. And if we did sell the entire piece of property, somebody else could tear it down instead of us.
So go ahead, Joe.
The one thing, though, that just to think about, not that that's a deal killer, but we kind of had talked about tearing that down sooner than later just to give better exposure to the hotel while it's being used as a hotel. But
the only reservation I'd have, I guess, would be the building either needs to be torn down or fixed up a little bit, painted and fixed up, and it stinks, and it's not very nice.
Hey, it smelled like that when it was in business.
Well, there's still about this much grease on everything in there, so that's the same. I would just suggest that's certainly a better location than the hangar space, because I'm going to recommend that we tear the hangar down up there.
The old
FedEx
one.
We have vandalism. We have people breaking in there every day. We can't keep it. It's just a mess. You can't secure it. It's served its purpose for what we've used it for a couple of years now to store our.
It doesn't owe us anything.
Stuff. It doesn't know. I think that's a bad building. Now there might be, and then plus the access, obviously going up the hill and everything else is bad. But if they want to do something, and they could maybe, I don't know what they, obviously if they're nonprofit, they haven't got any money to help fix it up.
But I think they do have some resources.
Danielle has a special relationship with an HVAC guy.
Yeah.
That part we know.
Well, I mean, just clean it up, paint it, just fix it up, but the problem is you put something in, then we sell that property in 6 months, and they lose it. But if they really want to get out of their place and put some incentive, that we don't have asbestos in that, fortunately, and so the cost to tear it down is not going to be as bad as we thought. I agree with Jimmy. If there was another place that they could go, it'd be great. We could tear that down and fix that parking lot up and open that whole thing up. It'd be better, especially if we're going to start construction across the street for parking in the downtown. But I'm game for something being in there rather than just being set. We either got to do something, either use it or tear it down. One of the two.
Have they gone and looked at it, Joe?
I don't know, I don't think so.
Maybe have them take a look at it and see what they
take a
think.
look at it and see what they think.
You say?
I tried to call Danielle today and
I've got a
never
key
got
in my
connection.
office too, if you need one to get in.
What'd you say?
She says lose it. Well, I think it'd be, I don't know, I guess let's have a little bit of offline discussion on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, if you're finished with this, could I ask Jimmy what's going on, talking about tearing down houses 2 doors down, the right by Harmon's, the Italian restaurant, Alfredo's. What's going on with those 2 houses? I went by today and they're gone.
My understanding is that Harmon's wants to get into the gas stations game with the rest of the department stores. So that's what's going to go there, a little gas station.
What about the corner house?
Well,
Both gone. Go by there today. They're gone.
They're gone.
I went by once today.
Yeah, but it started
This morning
They were there.
Now they're gone. Things move fast in
What's
St.
happened to
George.
my town?
And it's been sitting there fenced for quite a while, so it's a
Yeah.
welcome.
And Alfredo is at a restaurant out by the Harley Davidson.
Right behind the Harley Davidson, that's where Chef Alfredo
We lost
went.
him.
Oh,
Yeah.
He'll be back. Can't make it out there.
yeah.
He's at that Coral Cafe or something, but with Chef Alfredo. It's not even his. He's just,
Yeah,
he's their chef.
Yeah, he's just their chef right now, and he took all of his staff there, and they can have a liquor license there.
Yep.
So on that note, as you're moving forward, think of 700 and what's happening on 700 and that's becoming on 700 South. That's a pretty major street in St. George City, and we need to be planning ahead as we look at what's going on from
Absolutely.
River Road all the way to Bluff Street.
Absolutely.
It's probably the roughest road in town. Seriously.
Well, that was,
Oh, 100 South is a freeway.
Cameron's not here to defend himself.
Yeah. But today, SGPD was out in front of my place of business on 700 right there, where the houses are, and I'll bet they did some good traffic enforcement there today because people drive crazy, including yours truly, but thank goodness I made it through they must have pulled over in an hour 20 people there because it's getting a little crazy. And there's a lot of accidents on 700. So we got to do that because there are a lot of accidents.
It's what we got to do.
Yeah.
I've had several actual complaints today from, increased police presence. I said, well, slow down.
Right, because they literally finish one and turn around and they were able to pull one and right over. I mean, it was nonstop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
time.
It's a 4-lane road there and it feels like a freeway, but it's not. It's not. And there's a lot of accidents right there and in that intersection at River Road.
Yep. Okay, folks, if there are no more reports, I think we're good. What I would suggest is we need a motion to adjourn from City Council meeting and to convene the regular meeting of the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency of the City of St. George.
So moved.
Motion by Betty, second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor? Let's see. Starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Joe's out of the room, but he'll be back. So now we are in the regular meeting of the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency. Gary, do you want to take us through that?
Okay. Just I know for you already know this, but maybe for the public, the redevelopment agency governs, there's one entity called the RDA, Redevelopment Agency for the City. It doesn't really have a budget, but each EDA, CDA, Economic Development Area, and CDA, Community Development Area, they all fit within the umbrella of the RDA. So when we go into an RDA meeting, we're actually talking about Fort Pierce, Dixie Center, all those budgets. This first public hearing would be to consider an amendment to the EDA Fort Pierce EDA number 1. It's a small one. It's $2,000 for additional incentives that were higher. Each incentive is based on what the taxes they pay or a portion of the taxes they pay, and so this is a little bit higher. I think there's $2,000 that we're paying that entity, and then there's $6,000 coming from the EDA back into our housing fund we just talked about. That's the only budget adjustments we're talking about. So the first item will be public hearing and then adoption of that change.
Any questions on this, first of all? Okay, then I will open the public hearing for those who might be here to offer input on this item, number 1 on our agenda for the redevelopment agency meeting. No? Okay. I'll close the public hearing, come back to you, members of this agency.
Motion to approve amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget for the RDA.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Let's see, that was a resolution. Requires a roll call vote. All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. So that takes care of 1 and 2. Is that correct? Did I do
Yes.
that right?
Yep. And the next one's the public hearing, like you have in the regular general fund of the city. You have to have, under state law, a public hearing regarding the proposed budgets for the next fiscal year for your the RDA. And so you have in your budget, you have Fort Pierce EDA number 1, EDA number 2, CDA number 1, CDA number 2. You have the Dixie Center, and you have the Central Business District, CDAs. So, unless you got specific questions or the public has specific questions about those budgets, I'd be happy to ask them.
Any questions?
I think, though, Mayor, it would be interesting. Dan, I don't know if you got it off the top of your head, but those economic development areas out in Fort Pierce are done to spur development, and then the taxing entities would get additional dollars later on. So they give up some dollars to start with, they get them later on. We're just going to, how much are we going to give this year back to the agencies? $600,000 that they probably would not have received without the creation of those EDAs. The city gets like, I think 80,000 or something that we'll get that will be in your budget for next year. So school district's a significant amount. So that's the intent, and now you can see it's coming to fruition, at least in all these districts out there, at least several of those districts out there are paying back some of those portions. And as we end them, they'll get it all. So there's nothing really in any of these budgets that should surprise anybody for that. I mean, it's just taking the incentives that we have for the companies that have located there, fulfilling the contractual obligations that we have for them. Any money that's left over, if they're in the area where the housing, a 20% tax rebate on the housing comes into our housing fund. Other than that, we're not proposing any major projects. The Dixie Center one will have a amount of transferring from the Dixie Center into the Economic Development Fund. You might remember we loaned it $1 million to make all the improvements along that street to accommodate the businesses that are now the 2 hotels and the other businesses starting there. So,
Questions, council, before I open the public hearing for this mass of people that wants to comment? Okay, then I will open the public hearing. Well, wouldn't you be if you could be?
I have a calculator on here. I'm doing the math.
Okay, good work. I do open the public hearing for those who might be here to offer input regarding the fiscal year 2017-18 budget for the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, come back to you. This is the board, and have you make a motion if you're so inclined regarding the adoption of the fiscal year budget.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Ed to adopt the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget for the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency of the City of St. George. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye. Aye. I did that.
Aye.
Didn't I?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so then we have some minutes from the last meeting, which was held December 15th, 2016. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Michelle, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion to adjourn from this meeting. Motion by
Second.
Michelle, second by Betty. Discussion on that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jimmy's not sure.
I'm thinking about
But
it.
the motion carries. Okay, we're out of here. Thank you.